No, I forgot to make a reservation for Miss Jones. I'm sorry, I said. My mother-in-law pretended to be surprised and grabbed my hands. The five of us went to the restaurant together, but she purposely didn't save a spot for me. Honey, there's no need to apologize, she said. We originally made this reservation for our son and grandson. We don't need to include strangers. My father-in-law agreed with her, laughing loudly. Hey, Emery, make sure you pay the bill. How nice it is to treat your family to a meal. After my husband, Jose, spoke, my in-laws laughed even louder. Their crude laughter didn't match the quiet atmosphere of the fancy restaurant. My son, Liam, looked at me uncomfortably. I wanted to flip the table they were sitting at, but I had no energy to fight them anymore. I didn't want my precious son to witness that. I sighed and turned around. Fine, I'll watch over Liam, so don't worry. Bye, Emery Jones. Even after marrying her son, my mother-in-law always called me by my maiden name Jones. Today, she said it again with a smug smile on her face. She always harassed me like this, but I just walked away. As I held back tears and went to pay at the front counter, a waiter suddenly grabbed my hand. Miss Jones, no way. I never imagined this could happen. To think I'd meet him again, all because a waiter noticed what my mother-in-law said as she harassed me. From that moment on, my life completely changed. When did my marriage start falling apart? I used to live happily with my husband Jose and our son Liam in a 3-bedroom apartment. But that's just a memory now. I first met Jose in college. He looked like a model and had a way with words, so many girls chased after him. The fact that he chose me made me think he really liked me, right? But Jose always put himself first. He hid it well, but as we grew closer, I quickly found out. I'm indecisive and feel most comfortable following others. I was surprised when Jose confessed his feelings to me, but thinking about it now, maybe he was drawn to my weak personality. When we started dating, I began to notice things about Jose's personality that bothered me. But since such a great guy chose me, I told myself not to be too picky. After we graduated from university, my doubts grew stronger. Thanks to his father's connections, Jose got hired by a big company and was given special treatment. Being an only son, his parents spoiled him a lot. My father-in-law even had a friend who managed an apartment building and gave us a huge discount on rent. I started to feel like my in-laws were upset that Jose had chosen me. They had always arranged everything for him, so maybe they felt I wasn't good enough for their son. I'll never forget the contempt in their eyes when we first met. Don't you think your parents really hate me? I asked Jose. Really? You don't need to worry about them, he said. You're not marrying them, you're marrying me. At the time, Jose seemed so reassuring, so I made the mistake of believing him and thinking everything would be okay. Jose and I got married, but his parents still didn't accept me as part of their family. Even now, they still call me by my maiden name. After we got married, I gave birth to our son, Liam. Without Liam, I would have given up a long time ago. For the first year after Liam was born, my in-laws' attitude changed a bit. They were thrilled to have their first grandchild, and my mother-in-law even thanked me for giving birth to Liam. Those were the first and last words of gratitude I ever heard from her. But when Liam turned 2, things went back to how they were before, if not worse. When my in-laws visited, they only paid attention to Jose and Liam. Meanwhile, Jose was cheating on me while I was busy taking care of Liam. No matter how many times I thought about leaving, I decided to stay with Jose until Liam was grown up. I told myself that even a father like Jose was better than Liam not having a father at all. But then one day, something unexpected happened. It was the weekend and my in-laws came over, as usual, to play with Liam. As they were leaving that evening, they said something surprising. All right, let's have a birthday party for Jose next week. I made a reservation at King, my father-in-law announced proudly. King? That's the restaurant managed by our CEO's son, right? I've heard it's really hard to get a reservation there, Jose replied. I made a special request to the CEO just for you, my father-in-law said, clearly pleased with himself. I expected that, like last year, they'd want to go somewhere without me, but then my mother-in-law turned to me and said, So, you should keep your schedule open too. Huh? I was still in shock as my in-laws left. I didn't understand what was going on, but I started to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was the first step toward fixing our relationship. On the day of Jose's birthday, we all gathered at the restaurant. I had imagined a large grand place since it was supposed to be high-end, but it was actually quite small and intimate, the kind of place where only a few select customers could dine at the same time. As we entered, my father-in-law seemed very proud. I noticed a large engraved stone sign that read King. Seeing that name brought back old memories, and I started to feel nostalgic. I remembered there was a guy named King in high school, and without realizing it, I began to smile. We were then shown to a table in a private room. However, the table in the private room had only 4 chairs. The waiter looked nervous and said, "I'm sorry, I'll get one more chair for you." "Oh, don't worry, 4 chairs are enough," my father-in-law said. The waiter seemed confused, but I immediately understood what my father-in-law was implying. My mother-in-law added, "Oh no, I forgot to make a reservation for Mrs. Jones. I'm sorry." She pretended to be surprised and grabbed my hands. The 5 of us went to the restaurant together, but she intentionally didn't save a spot for me. "Honey, there's no need to apologize," my mother-in-law said. "We originally made this reservation for our son and grandson. We don't need to include strangers." My father-in-law encouraged her with a loud laugh. "Hey, Emery, be sure to pay the bill. How nice it is to treat your family to a meal." After Josie spoke, my in-laws laughed even louder. Their loud, inappropriate laughter didn't fit the quiet atmosphere of the fancy restaurant. My son, Liam, looked at me uncomfortably. I wanted to flip the table they were sitting at, but I didn't have the energy to fight them anymore, and I didn't want my precious son to see that. I sighed and turned around. "Fine, I'll watch over Liam, so don't worry. Bye, Emery Jones." As I walked out of the room, I heard more laughter behind me. I made my way to the exit, wiping away the tears that were streaming down my cheeks. The waiter who had left the room with me suddenly grabbed my hand. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Emery Jones?" Yeah. About the bill." I started to say. "There's no need for you to worry about the bill. Please follow me," he said. I was puzzled but didn't pull away. I followed the waiter as we walked further from the private dining room. I could still hear my father-in-law's loud voice behind us, saying things like, "She'll be so expensive she won't be able to pay. She'll probably start crying. If she can't pay, she should wash dishes." As we approached a staff room, I felt a bit relieved when the noise from my in-laws faded away. But I was still curious about why the waiter was leading me here. He opened the door, and I grew more worried. Inside, a tall man with a serious face stood in front of me. He looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place him. I stared at him, and he raised an eyebrow. That gesture made me realize. "Are you King?" "Yeah, it's been a while, Emery." King smiled. Then his expression turned serious. "Emery, can you leave them to me?" "Them? Do you mean my husband and in-laws?" "Yes, let's go see them now." King took my hand and led me back towards the private dining room. He opened the door with a loud bang, and everyone immediately turned to look at him. My father-in-law stood up with a forced smile. "Oh, it's Chef King. You look serious. Did something happen?" "It's about Emery," King said. My in-laws looked shocked. King and I were classmates in high school. He was rebellious and often skipped school, but after a while, we became friends. Despite his tough exterior, he was actually very kind. When my in-laws heard what King said, their faces went pale. "Oh, we didn't intend to," they started to stammer. "Then please explain to me what you were trying to do," King demanded. Jose, looking pitiful, stepped forward. As I followed his gaze, I saw an older man who looked like King walking towards us. I wanted to laugh, but the room's atmosphere was too tense. "Are you the ones who treated my son's friend so rudely?" the older man asked. "But boss, what happened?" "Won't you explain?" my father-in-law stammered. He's wrong. There's been a misunderstanding," he continued. "Hey, Emery, say something," my mother-in-law urged. I didn't need to say anything. King cut in. "I don't mean rude employees like you. Don't come to our office anymore." "No way." "Wait, please give us a chance. We're incredibly sorry. Please forgive us," they begged desperately. My mother-in-law started crying, and the 2 of them continued to apologize. Liam came over to me, looking scared and with tears in his eyes. I comforted him, telling him not to be afraid, and patted his head. After a while, he calmed down and managed to smile again. "If you're really sincere, you should prove it with your actions," King said. "Clean the restaurant after we close tonight. People with dirty hearts like yours should learn how to clean." King and his father then took Liam and me to a separate room and served us an amazing meal. The food was incredibly delicious, and even though King acted very humbly, they had prepared a special kids' meal for Liam. "Liam, your mom is a great person," King said. "Yeah, I know," Liam replied. "Yeah, you probably do," King smiled. "Do you want me to tell you a story?" King began sharing a story from the past, recounting how he had hated studying when we were in high school. King's parents were high achievers, but he struggled with studying and felt like he didn't fit in with his family. He missed so many days of school that he was close to being expelled. One day, King and I were paired up for a cooking assignment in home economics class. "Try this," I said, handing him a sample. "Wow, it's delicious," he replied. "You're so good at seasoning food." "I just did it randomly," I said. "No way. I saw how many times you tasted it. There's no way it was random," King said. I didn't think much of my words, but it was the first time King had ever received a compliment. Thanks to that compliment, King started studying cooking. Of course, he didn't become a pro right away and made many mistakes. "I'm really useless," he said once. "You're not useless," I reassured him. "You just need to be creative with your cooking." "Huh?" he responded. "No matter how good your ingredients are, if they're not cooked well, they won't taste good. Measure portions properly, try different combinations, or let things sit overnight once in a while." Creative. Yes, exactly. Just like in cooking, even if you have talent, not everything you do will be perfect, so you need to be creative. That advice helped King realize he needed to aim to be a pro. He eventually became a world-renowned chef. His relationship with his parents improved after that. After hearing the whole story, I was amazed. Did I really say something like that? "Yes," King said. "You probably don't remember, but your words had a huge impact on me." "Mom, you're amazing," Liam said. King's story didn't end there. He spoke about me to his employees many times, so when the waiter heard my name, he recognized it and knew he had to help me. So the restaurant name wasn't just a coincidence. "Yeah," King said, smiling. "You're the one who once wrote my name with a C instead of a K, right?" "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose," I said. "No, I'm actually happy it happened," King replied. "You were the only person who paid attention to me back then. I thought writing the restaurant name with a C would make it stand out and be easier to remember. So thank you." One of the staff called to King and he left the room. I reflected on what I had told him back then. I realized I needed to be creative with my own life too. If I didn't put any effort, things wouldn't turn out the way I wanted. Looking at Liam, I made up my mind. I would divorce Jose and start my life over. 1 year later. "Hey King," Liam shouted as he rushed to hug him. King hugged Liam back, smiling warmly. Since that time at the restaurant, King and I had started seeing each other more often and began dating. We were now considering getting married. I hadn't talked to Liam about it yet, but I was sure he'd be happy. Liam was so attached to King that I felt confident he would be pleased. After the incident, my ex-father-in-law and Jose were both demoted. They begged their bosses for forgiveness, but due to the complicated HR processes in large companies, they hadn't been fired yet. They're still hanging on somehow in the company's shadows. King and I watched over Liam as he peacefully slept after getting tired from playing with King. Liam's worried because he's not good at studying, I told King. He's tried cooking to be like you, but things haven't gone well, and he's gotten even more upset. "Really?" King asked. "Yes, he's actually very athletic. The other day, he won first place in a sprinting contest at school." "Then there's no need to worry about him," King said reassuringly. King and I made eye contact and smiled. I've always wanted to enjoy quiet moments like this with my partner. "I'll teach Liam the way you taught me," I said. "Everyone is good at different things." "That's right," King agreed. "Thank you." King gently patted Liam's head with his large hands. They really looked like they could be father and son.
The doorbell rings and I freeze. It's a sound I haven't heard in years, not since he walked out on us. My heart races as I approach the door, a mixture of anger and curiosity burning in my chest. I take a deep breath and open it, revealing the man I once loved, the man who shattered my trust and broke our family. "Hello, Amara," Grayson says, a charming smile on his face. "It's been a while." "I never thought I'd see your face again, Grayson. After all these years, you think you can just waltz back into our lives like nothing happened?" My voice trembles with barely contained fury. He steps forward, his eyes pleading. I know I made mistakes, but I've changed. I want to make things right, especially with Zoe. She deserves to have her father in her life. I scoff, crossing my arms. Zoe deserves better than a father who abandoned her. You lost the right to be in her life when you walked away. Grayson sighs, running a hand through his hair. But I was a different man then, Amara. I was selfish and foolish, but I've learned from my mistakes. Please just give me a chance to prove myself. I hesitate, torn between the desire to protect my daughter and the small part of me that still remembers the man I fell in love with. One chance, Grayson. That's all you get. But if you hurt Zoe again, I swear I'll make you regret it. He nods, relief washing over his face. Thank you, Amara. I won't let you down. As he steps into our home, I can't shake the feeling that I've just invited trouble back into our lives. But for Zoe's sake, I'm willing to give him a chance to be the father she deserves. Over the next few weeks, Grayson charms his way back into our lives. He takes Zoe out for father-daughter bonding, listens intently to her stories, and showers her with affection. I watch from a distance, my heart aching as I see the joy on Zoe's face, a joy I haven't seen in years. One evening, as we're cleaning up after a catering event, Grayson approaches me with a proposition. Amara, I've been thinking about your business. I have some ideas on how we can expand, take things to the next level. I raise an eyebrow, surprised by his sudden interest. I appreciate the offer, Grayson, but I've been managing just fine on my own. He leans in, his eyes sincere. I know you have, but imagine what we could achieve together. With my business knowledge and your culinary skills, we could make this catering company the talk of Houston. Against my better judgment, I find myself considering his offer. The prospect of growing my business is tempting, and having Grayson's support could make it easier. I'll think about it, I concede, but I'm not making any promises. Grayson smiles, his eyes twinkling with excitement. That's all I ask, Amara. Together, we can make something amazing. As he walks away, I can't help but feel a twinge of unease. Grayson's sudden interest in my business, his smooth words and charming demeanor, it all feels too familiar. I've fallen for his tricks before, and I can't afford to let my guard down again. But for now, I'll play along, keeping a watchful eye on the man who once broke my heart. As the days pass, Grayson's presence in our lives becomes more pronounced. He's always around, offering to help with the catering business, bonding with Zoe, and trying to win me over with his charm. Despite my reservations, I find myself letting him in, little by little. One afternoon, as we're preparing for a big event, Grayson pulls me aside. Amara, I've been looking over the business's finances, and I think I can help you secure a loan to expand. With the right investment, we could take this company to new heights. I frown, unsure of his sudden interest in my business's financial matters. I appreciate the offer, Grayson, but I'm not comfortable taking out a loan. We're doing just fine as we are. He places a hand on my shoulder, his eyes intense. Trust me, Amara, I know what I'm doing. With this loan, we can buy better equipment, hire more staff, and take on bigger clients. It's a risk, but the payoff will be worth it. Against my better judgment, I find myself agreeing. Grayson's confidence is infectious, and the prospect of expanding the business is tempting. Okay, let's do it, but I want to be involved every step of the way. Grayson grins, squeezing my shoulder. Of course, partner, we're in this together. As we work on securing the loan, I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. Grayson is too eager, too insistent on using my house as collateral, but every time I express my doubts, he reassures me with his smooth words and charming smile. One evening, as I'm going over the paperwork, my best friend and business partner, Liam, stops by. He takes one look at the loan documents and frowns. Amara, are you sure about this? It's a lot of money, and using your house as collateral is risky. I sigh, rubbing my temples. I know, Liam, but Grayson seems to know what he's doing. He's convinced this is the right move for the business. Liam's eyes narrow, his voice low and serious. I don't trust him, Amara. He shows up out of nowhere after 10 years, and suddenly he's an expert on your business? Something doesn't add up. His words strike a chord, and I feel a knot forming in my stomach. You're right, Liam. I've been so caught up in the idea of expanding that I haven't been thinking clearly. I'll talk to Grayson, see if we can find another way. But when I confront Grayson, he becomes defensive. Amara, this is our chance to make something great. Don't let Liam's doubts hold you back. He's just jealous of what we have, of the bond we share as a family. His words are like honey, sweet and convincing, but there's a bitter aftertaste. I don't know, Grayson. Maybe we should slow down, think this through. Grayson's eyes flash with anger, his voice cold. I thought you trusted me, Amara. I thought we were partners. But if you'd rather listen to Liam than your own husband, then maybe I was wrong about you. I flinch at his words, a part of me still desperate to believe in the man I once loved. No, Grayson, I do trust you. I'm sorry for doubting you. Let's move forward with the loan. As we sign the papers, I feel a sense of unease washing over me. I've just tied my future, my home, to a man I'm no longer sure I can trust. But it's too late to back out now. I've made my choice, and I can only hope that Grayson's intentions are as pure as he claims. That night, as I lie awake in bed, Zoe comes into my room, her face etched with worry. Mom, I need to talk to you about Dad. He's been asking me for money, saying it's for the business. But something doesn't feel right. My heart sinks, a cold realization dawning on me. Grayson's been manipulating not just me, but our daughter as well. And now, we're both caught in his web of lies and deceit. Zoe's revelation about Grayson asking her for money sends a chill down my spine. I sit up in bed, my heart racing as I process the implications of his actions. Zoe, honey, how much money has your father asked for? She looks down, her voice trembling. A few $1,000s. He said it was for some business expenses that he'd pay me back as soon as the loan came through. But when I asked him about it later, he got angry and told me not to mention it to you. I pull her into a hug, my mind reeling with the realization that Grayson has been manipulating our daughter. It's okay, sweetie. You did the right thing by telling me. I'll handle this. The next morning, I confront Grayson in the kitchen. We need to talk. Zoe told me you've been asking her for money. What's going on, Grayson? He looks up from his coffee, his expression a mix of surprise and annoyance. It's nothing, Amara. Just a little misunderstanding. I needed some cash to cover a few expenses, but I'll pay her back as soon as the loan comes through. I shake my head, anger bubbling up inside me. No, Grayson. You don't get to use our daughter like that. If you needed money, you should have come to me. We're supposed to be partners, remember? Grayson's eyes narrow, his voice taking on a defensive tone. I didn't want to bother you with every little detail, Amara. I'm just trying to keep the business running smoothly. You're overreacting. Overreacting? You're taking advantage of our daughter's trust, and you expect me to be okay with that. I slam my hand on the counter, my voice rising. And what about the loan? I've been going over the paperwork, and something doesn't add up. Where's the money going, Grayson? He stands up, his face flushed with anger. I don't have to explain myself to you, Amara. I'm doing what's best for this family, for our business. If you can't see that, then maybe you're not the partner I thought you were. I step back, stunned by his outburst. I'm not the one hiding things, Grayson. I'm not the one lying to our daughter. I want the truth, and I want it now. Grayson grabs his jacket, his eyes cold and distant. You want the truth? Fine. The truth is I've been cleaning up your mess, Amara. This business was failing before I came back, and I'm the only one who can save it. If you can't handle that, then maybe I should just leave. He storms out of the house, leaving me shaking with anger and confusion. I collapse into a chair, my head in my hands, as I try to make sense of what just happened. How could I have been so blind? How could I have let Grayson back into our lives, only to have him betray us like this? I spend the next few hours going over the business's financial records, trying to piece together where the money has been going. As I dig deeper, I uncover a trail of discrepancies and hidden transactions, all leading back to Grayson. He's been embezzling money from the business, siphoning off funds into his own accounts. My heart sinks as the reality of his betrayal sinks in. The man I once loved, the father of my child, is nothing more than a liar and a thief. And now he's put our entire future at risk. I pick up the phone, my hands shaking as I dial Liam's number. Liam, it's me. You were right about Grayson. He's been stealing from the business, and he's manipulating Zoe. I need your help. We have to stop him before it's too late. As I hang up, I feel a sense of determination washing over me. I won't let Grayson destroy our lives, our business, our family. I'll do whatever it takes to protect what's mine, even if it means taking down the man I once loved. Liam arrives at my house within the hour, his face etched with concern. I pour out the whole story, showing him the financial records and the evidence of Grayson's betrayal. He listens intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Amara, this is serious," he says, his voice grave. "Grayson's not just embezzling money from the business, he's been gambling it away. I've heard rumors about him getting involved with some shady characters, running illegal poker games." My stomach churns at the thought of Grayson's deception running even deeper than I imagined. "I can't believe I let him into our lives, Liam. I trusted him, and he's been lying to me this whole time." Liam places a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It's not your fault, Amara. Grayson's a master manipulator. He knew exactly what to say and do to gain your trust. But now that we know the truth, we can fight back." I nod, a fierce determination burning in my chest. "You're right. I won't let him get away with this. He's not just stealing from me, he's stealing from Zoe's future. I have to protect my daughter." As if on cue, Zoe walks into the room, her eyes wide with fear. "Mom, what's going on? I heard you and Liam talking about Dad. Is everything okay?" I take a deep breath, knowing that I can't shield her from the truth any longer. "Zoe, honey, I need to tell you something about your father. He's been lying to us, stealing money from the business, and using it to gamble." Zoe's face crumples, tears welling up in her eyes. "What? No, that can't be true. Dad wouldn't do that to us. He loves us." My heart breaks for my daughter, knowing the pain she must be feeling. "I know it's hard to believe, sweetie, but it's the truth. Your father has been manipulating both of us, taking advantage of our trust." Zoe collapses into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "I gave him money, Mom. I thought I was helping him, helping the business. But he was just using me, wasn't he?" I stroke her hair, my own tears falling silently. "It's not your fault, Zoe. Your father's the one who betrayed us. But I promise you, I won't let him hurt us anymore. We'll get through this together." Liam clears his throat, his expression somber. "Amara, we need to act fast. If Grayson's been gambling with the loan money, it's only a matter of time before the bank comes after you. We need to gather all the evidence we can and take it to the authorities." I nod, wiping away my tears. "You're right, Liam. I won't let Grayson destroy everything I've worked so hard to build. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure he pays for what he's done." Over the next few days, Liam and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence of Grayson's crimes. We pore over financial records, track down witnesses, and piece together a damning case against him. All the while, I try to shield Zoe from the worst of it, knowing that she's already been through so much. But even as we work to bring Grayson to justice, the consequences of his actions begin to catch up with us. The bank calls, threatening to foreclose on the house if we can't pay back the loan. Suppliers start demanding payment for overdue invoices, and clients begin to question the stability of our business. I feel like I'm drowning, the weight of Grayson's betrayal crushing me from all sides. But I refuse to give up. I made a promise to Zoe, to myself, that I would make things right, and I intend to keep that promise, no matter what it takes. One evening, as I'm working late in the office, Grayson storms in, his face twisted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Amara? I know you've been digging into my business, trying to turn everyone against me." I stand my ground, my voice steady and cold. "I'm doing what I should have done a long time ago, Grayson. I'm exposing you for the liar and thief that you are. You've hurt me, you've hurt Zoe, and you've put everything we've worked for at risk. It's over." Grayson laughs, a cruel, mocking sound. "You think you can stop me, Amara? You have no idea who you're dealing with. I'll destroy you just like I destroyed this business, and when I'm done, you'll have nothing left." He storms out, leaving me shaking with anger and fear, but I won't let his threats deter me. I have the truth on my side, and I won't rest until Grayson pays for his crimes. No matter what it takes, I'll make sure he never hurts us again. The next morning, I wake up to a pounding on my front door. I stumble out of bed, my heart racing as I peer through the peephole. 2 men in suits stand outside, their faces grim and impatient. I open the door, my hands trembling. "Amara Johnson?" one of the men asks, his voice gruff and businesslike. I nod, my throat suddenly dry. "Yes, that's me. What's this about?" The man hands me a stack of papers, his expression unchanged. "We're from the bank. You're in default on your loan, and we're here to inform you that we're starting the foreclosure process on your house." My stomach drops, a wave of panic washing over me. Foreclosure? No, there must be some mistake. I've been making payments on time. The man shakes his head, his voice cold and unsympathetic. "Not according to our records. You've missed several payments and the loan is now in default. You have 30 days to bring the loan current, or we'll be forced to take possession of the property." I stand there, stunned, as the men turn and walk away. I close the door, my legs giving out from under me as I sink to the floor. How could this be happening? How could Grayson have let things get this bad? I pick up my phone, my hands shaking as I dial Liam's number. "Liam, it's me. The bank was just here. They're going to foreclose on my house if I don't come up with the money." Liam's voice is calm and reassuring on the other end of the line. "Okay, Amara, take a deep breath. We'll figure this out." I've been doing some digging into Grayson's past, and I think I might have found something that can help us. I feel a flicker of hope, a glimmer of light in the darkness. "What did you find?" It turns out Grayson has a history of scamming women, running illegal gambling rings, and embezzling money from businesses he's been involved with. I've tracked down some of his former partners and victims, and they're willing to testify against him. I let out a shaky breath, my mind reeling with the implications of Liam's discovery. "So, we have a case against him? We can prove that he's been stealing from the business, from me and Zoe?" "It's a start," Liam says, his voice cautious but determined. "But we need more evidence, something concrete that ties him directly to the embezzlement and the illegal gambling." "I have an idea, but it's risky." I feel a surge of determination, a fire burning in my chest. "I'll do whatever it takes, Liam. I won't let Grayson destroy our lives any more than he already has." Over the next few days, Liam and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence against Grayson. We tracked down his former associates, convinced them to turn over records and testimony, and pieced together a damning case against him. All the while, I try to keep up appearances at work, not wanting to let on to Grayson that we're closing in on him. But Grayson is growing increasingly erratic, his behavior more and more unpredictable. He shows up at the office at odd hours, demanding to see the books, accusing me of trying to undermine him. I do my best to keep my cool, knowing that any slip-up could jeopardize our plan. One evening, as I'm working late in the office, Grayson bursts in, his eyes wild with anger. "You think you're so clever, don't you, Amara? You think you can outsmart me, turn everyone against me?" I stand my ground, my voice steady and calm. "It's over, Grayson. We have evidence of your crimes, of your lies and your betrayal. You're going to pay for what you've done to me, to Zoe, to this business." Grayson lunges at me, his hands reaching for my throat. I dodge out of the way, my heart pounding in my chest. "You'll never prove anything," he snarls, his face twisted with rage. "I'll destroy you, Amara. I'll take everything you love and burn it to the ground." I back away, my hand reaching for the phone. "You're wrong, Grayson. You've already lost, and now you're going to face the consequences of your actions." I dial 911, my voice shaking as I report the assault. As the police sirens grow closer, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. It's not over yet, but for the first time in months, I feel like I'm taking control of my life, my future, and I won't let Grayson take that away from me again. The police arrive within minutes. We're taking Grayson into custody. As they lead him away in handcuffs, he shoots me a venomous glare, his eyes promising retribution, but I refuse to let his threats intimidate me. I've come too far to back down now. In the days that follow, Liam and I put our plan into action. We reach out to Grayson's former associates, the ones he's scammed and cheated over the years, and convince them to join forces with us. Together, we devise a scheme to lure Grayson into a trap, to catch him red-handed in the act of his crimes. It's a risky gambit, but it's the only way to ensure that Grayson pays for what he's done. We set up a high-stakes poker game, spreading the word through the underground gambling circuit that Grayson used to frequent. We make sure that the game is heavily monitored, with undercover police officers posing as players and dealers. The night of the game arrives, and I feel a mix of nerves and anticipation as I watch from a hidden camera. Grayson swaggers into the room, his arrogance on full display. He takes a seat at the table, his eyes gleaming with greed as he surveys the other players. As the game progresses, Grayson becomes more and more reckless, betting larger and larger sums of money. I watch as he pulls out a wad of cash, the same cash that he embezzled from our business, and tosses it onto the table with a smirk. But just as he's about to rake in his winnings, the undercover officers spring into action. They surround the table, their badges glinting in the dim light. "Grayson Mitchell, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and illegal gambling," one of the officers says, his voice stern and authoritative. Grayson's face turns pale, his eyes widening in shock. He tries to run, but the officers are too quick. They tackle him to the ground, handcuffing him as he struggles and curses. I step out from behind the camera, my heart pounding in my chest. Grayson looks up at me, his expression a mix of fury and disbelief. "You set me up," he snarls, his voice dripping with venom. "You'll pay for this, Amara. I'll make sure of it." I shake my head, my voice calm and steady. "No, Grayson. You're the one who's going to pay. You've hurt too many people, destroyed too many lives. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." As the officers lead Grayson away, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. It's not over yet, I know. There will be a trial. A long and painful process of unraveling the web of lies and deceit that Grayson has woven. But for now, I can breathe a little easier, knowing that my daughter and I are safe, that our future is no longer in the hands of a man who would stop at nothing to destroy us. Liam puts a hand on my shoulder, his expression one of pride and admiration. "You did it, Amara. You stood up to him. You fought back. I always knew you had that strength inside you." I nod, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. You've been there for me every step of the way, even when I didn't deserve it." Liam smiles, his eyes soft and understanding. "That's what friends are for, Amara. That's what family is for. And you and Zoe, you're my family. I'll always be here for you, no matter what." I lean into his embrace, feeling the warmth of his support and love wash over me. And for the first time in months, I allow myself to hope, to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything will be okay. As we leave the police station, I take a deep breath of the cool night air. The road ahead won't be easy, I know. There will be challenges and obstacles, moments of doubt and fear. But I also know that I'm not alone, that I have the strength and the support to face whatever comes my way. And that knowledge gives me the courage to keep moving forward, one step at a time. The morning of Grayson's arraignment, I wake up with a knot in my stomach. I know that today is the first step in a long and painful process, but I'm determined to see it through. I dress carefully, choosing a simple black suit and a white blouse, my armor against the battle ahead. Liam picks me up, his face etched with concern. "Are you sure you want to do this, Amara? You don't have to face him alone." I nod, my jaw set with determination. "I need to do this, Liam. I need to look him in the eye and let him know that he hasn't broken me, that he hasn't won." We arrive at the courthouse, the steps crowded with reporters and curious onlookers. I take a deep breath and push through the throng, my head held high. Inside, the courtroom is packed, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Grayson is led in, his hands and feet shackled. He looks pale and drawn, his once confident demeanor replaced by a sullen defiance. He catches my eye and sneers, his lips curling into a mocking smile. The judge reads out the charges against him, a litany of crimes that makes my stomach churn. Fraud, embezzlement, extortion, illegal gambling, the list goes on and on. Grayson pleads not guilty, his voice dripping with disdain. As the hearing ends, I approach Grayson, my heart pounding in my chest. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" I say, my voice shaking with anger. "You think you can just walk away from all the pain and destruction you've caused?" Grayson laughs, a harsh, grating sound. "You're pathetic, Amara. You think you've won, but you haven't seen anything yet. I'll destroy you, just like I destroyed everything else in your miserable little life." I lean in close, my eyes locked with his. "You're wrong, Grayson. You've already lost. I know about your past, about all the women you've scammed and cheated. I know about the illegal gambling rings you've run, the lives you've ruined, and I'm going to make sure that everyone else knows too." Grayson's face twists with rage, his hands clenching into fists. "You'll regret this, Amara. I'll make sure of it." I shake my head, a small triumphant smile playing at the corners of my mouth. "No, Grayson. You're the one who's going to regret ever coming back into our lives. I'm going to testify against you, and I'm going to make sure that you pay for every single one of your crimes." As the guards lead Grayson away, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. It's not over yet, I know, but I've taken the first step. I've faced my demons and come out stronger on the other side. Outside the courthouse, I find Zoe waiting for me, her face streaked with tears. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she sobs, her body shaking with grief and anger. "I can't believe I ever trusted him, that I ever let him into our lives." I pull her into a tight hug, my own tears mingling with hers. "It's not your fault, Zoe. He fooled us all, but we're going to get through this together, I promise." Zoe pulls back, her eyes blazing with determination. "I want to testify against him, Mom. I want to tell the court what he did to me, how he manipulated me and used me." I nod, my heart swelling with pride and love for my brave, resilient daughter. "We'll do it together, Zoe. We'll make sure that he never hurts anyone else again." As we leave the courthouse, hand in hand, I feel a sense of hope and purpose that I haven't felt in years. I know that the road ahead will be long and difficult, that there will be setbacks and challenges along the way. But I also know that I have the strength and the support to face whatever comes my way. And that knowledge gives me the courage to keep moving forward, one day at a time. I gave you everything, Zeke. My love, my trust, my father's legacy, and this is how you repay me? I gripped the damning photos in my shaking hands, the glossy images of my husband's infidelity blurring through my tears. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When Zeke and I first met, it was a whirlwind romance. He was charming, ambitious, and innovative, everything I thought I wanted in a partner. My father, the founder of our successful real estate development company, took an immediate liking to him. Zeke joined the company and quickly gained favor, his star rising as a brilliant architect. But as his reputation grew, so did his ego. Late nights, schmoozing clients at fancy dinners and exclusive clubs became the norm. When I expressed my concerns, Zeke dismissed them, claiming I didn't understand the demands of his job. I wanted to believe him, to trust that his heart remained true to me and our daughter, Violet. I was blind. Or maybe I just didn't want to see. The photos in my hands told a different story. There was Zeke, his lips locked with a young interns at a company event. Natalie, her name was, pretty, ambitious, and clearly enamored with my husband. "Mom?" Violet's voice shook me from my thoughts. "What's wrong?" I hastily wiped my tears, but it was too late. She'd seen the photos scattered across my desk. "It's your father," I managed, my voice breaking. "He's been having an affair." Violet's face contorted with anger. "What? With who?" "An intern. Natalie." "That bastard!" Violet slammed her fist on the desk. "You have to confront him, Mom. This can't go on." I shook my head, fear gripping my heart. "I can't. The scandal, the company. Your grandfather's health is declining. The stress could kill him." "And what about the stress this is causing you?" Violet demanded. "He doesn't deserve your protection, Mom, not anymore." Deep down, I knew she was right, but the thought of my carefully constructed world crumbling around me was paralyzing. The sound of the front door opening snapped me back to reality. Zeke was home, no doubt fresh from another late night at the office. I quickly gathered the photos, shoving them into a drawer. Violet glared as Zeke entered the room, his suit impeccable, but the scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to him like a guilty verdict. "What's with the long faces?" he asked, his charm now seeming so false, so hollow. Before I could respond, Violet stepped forward, her eyes blazing with fury. "How could you, Dad? How could you cheat on Mom, on our family, with some intern?" Zeke's eyes widened, darting to me in panic. "Stella, I can explain," but I held up a hand, silencing him. The pain in my heart had crystallized into something harder, sharper. Determination. "No more lies, Zeke," I said coldly. "No more excuses. You've made your choice. Now you'll face the consequences." I didn't know what those consequences would be yet, but one thing was certain. I would not let this man destroy everything my father had built, everything I had worked so hard to protect, even if it meant destroying him first. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, my mind still reeling from the revelation of Zeke's betrayal. As I walked through the halls, I overheard a conversation that stopped me in my tracks. "I'm telling you, man, Zeke's got it made," a male colleague said. "That new intern, Natalie, she's practically eating out of his hand. He said she's the reason he landed the Johnsons' project. Laughter echoed from the room. I bet she is. I heard they have a special bond, if you know what I mean. Rage boiled inside me. Not only was Zeke cheating, but he was using his affair to advance his career. I fought the urge to storm in and confront him, knowing I needed to play this smart. My phone buzzed with a text from Violet. Skipped school, following Dad, caught him bringing Natalie to the lake house, taking pictures now. My heart sank. The lake house was our family's sanctuary, a place filled with cherished memories. How dare he taint it with his sordid affair? I quickly replied, telling Violet to be careful and come home immediately. Then I made a decision. If Zeke wanted to play dirty, I'd dig up every speck of dirt on his precious Natalie. A few phone calls later, I had my answer. Natalie had a history of seducing married men at her previous jobs, using her charm to extract money, gifts, and favors. She was nothing but a gold-digging homewrecker. As I sat fuming in my office, my secretary knocked on the door, her face ashen. "Mrs. Delaney, I'm so sorry. It's your father. He's had a heart attack." The world tilted beneath my feet. What? Is he? He's alive, but in critical condition. Your mother is with him at the hospital. I rushed to the hospital, my thoughts a tangled mess of grief, anger, and fear. When I arrived, my mother was in tears, clutching my father's hand as he lay unconscious, hooked up to beeping machines. Zeke burst in moments later, his face a mask of concern. "Stella, I came as soon as I heard. How is he?" I couldn't even look at him, my disgust threatening to overwhelm me. "Like you care. You're probably just worried about your precious promotion." "How can you say that?" Zeke had the audacity to sound wounded. "Your father is like a second dad to me. I love him." "Spare me the act, Zeke. I know about Natalie. I know everything." Before he could respond, the doctor entered, his expression grim. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Delaney has passed away. We did everything we could." The room spun. I collapsed into a chair, my mother's wails echoing in my ears. Zeke tried to embrace me, but I shoved him away, repulsed by his touch. The funeral was a blur. Zeke played the role of the grieving son-in-law to perfection, shaking hands and accepting condolences, but I caught him whispering to Natalie, their heads bent together conspiratorially. After the service, the family lawyer gathered us for the reading of the will. To everyone's shock, my father had named me the sole heir and CEO of the company. Zeke's face contorted with rage, his mask slipping. Violet squeezed my hand, her voice low. "I told Grandpa about Zeke's cheating before he died. He wanted to make sure we were protected." Zeke cornered me after the lawyer left, his eyes blazing. "This is absurd, Stella. You know I'm the one who should be running the company. You're not cut out for this." I stood my ground, drawing strength from my daughter's love and my father's trust. "The only thing absurd here is your behavior, Zeke. You've lied, cheated, and betrayed this family. You're not fit to lead a dog on a leash, let alone this company." "You're making a huge mistake, Stella," Zeke snarled. "If you don't give me control, I'll ruin you. I'll destroy everything you hold dear." I looked him straight in the eye, my resolve unwavering. "Bring it on, Zeke. You have no idea what I'm capable of. You want a war? You've got one." The first order of business was to remove Zeke from the company. I had him escorted from the building, his access revoked, and his email account terminated. The look of shock and fury on his face as security led him out was a small victory, but I knew it was only the beginning. Next, I called an emergency board meeting. Armed with the evidence of Zeke's affair and unethical business practices, I laid bare his betrayal. The board was stunned, but unanimously voted to support my decision to fire him. I thought I'd feel a sense of triumph, but all I felt was a hollow ache in my chest. The man I had loved, the father of my child, was nothing but a snake in the grass. Zeke wasted no time retaliating. He started calling our clients, spinning tales of my incompetence and instability. He even went to the media, painting me as a scorned, vengeful wife who couldn't handle the pressure of running a company. But his most vicious move came in the form of a lawsuit. Natalie, the intern he'd been sleeping with, filed a sexual harassment claim against the company. She alleged that I had created a toxic work environment out of jealousy and spite. I was served the papers in the middle of a client meeting. As I read the lurid accusations, my stomach churned with rage and disgust. "This is all lies," I said through gritted teeth. "Zeke is behind this. He's using her to get back at me." My lawyer, a fierce woman named Olivia, placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We'll fight this, Stella. Zeke and Natalie won't get away with it." But the damage was done. The lawsuit hit the news, and suddenly, our company was synonymous with scandal. Clients started pulling their projects, investors backed out, and our stock prices plummeted. I was drowning, barely keeping my head above water as I fought to save my father's legacy. Violet, my rock through it all, refused to let me give up. "We'll find a way to beat them, Mom," she said, her eyes blazing with determination. "We just need to fight fire with fire." Late one night, as I pored over legal documents and financial reports, Violet burst into my home office. "Mom, look what I found." She thrust her phone into my hands, a series of texts displayed on the screen. I read them quickly, my heart pounding. They were messages between Zeke and Natalie detailing their plan to take over the company and force me out. "I hacked into Dad's old phone," Violet explained. "He never changed his password. There's more, Mom. Natalie's pregnant. She's claiming it's Dad's baby, but I think it's all part of their scheme." I felt sick to my stomach. Zeke's cruelty knew no bounds. He was willing to use an innocent child as a pawn in his twisted game. "We need to expose them," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "We need to show the world what kind of monsters they really are." Violet nodded, a fierce smile on her face. "I have an idea. The annual company gala is coming up. What if we confront them there, in front of everyone? We can present the evidence, expose their lies, and watch them crash and burn." It was a risky plan, but I was out of options. Zeke and Natalie had backed me into a corner, and I was ready to come out swinging. "Let's do it," I said, my resolve hardening. "Let's take those bastards down." As I hugged my daughter close, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. Zeke had underestimated me, underestimated the strength of a mother's love and the power of the truth. He wanted a war? He was about to get one hell of a battle. The night of the gala arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. Violet and I had spent weeks gathering evidence, piecing together the sordid details of Zeke and Natalie's scheme. We had bank statements, recorded conversations, and a damning trail of emails that painted a clear picture of their deceit. I smoothed my hands over my dress, a sleek black number that made me feel powerful, armored. Violet squeezed my hand as we entered the ballroom, the glittering chandeliers and elegant decor, a stark contrast to the ugliness we were about to expose. Zeke was holding court in the center of the room, Natalie draped on his arm like a trophy. They were all smiles and charm, working the crowd with their lies and manipulation. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. With Violet by my side, I approached the stage, the evidence clutched tightly in my hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" My voice rang out over the din of conversation, and the room fell silent. Zeke's eyes narrowed as he saw me, his jaw clenching with anger. Natalie's smile faltered, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "I have something important to share with all of you tonight," I continued, my heart pounding in my chest. "The truth about Zeke Delaney and Natalie Summers." I held up the stack of documents, my hands shaking slightly. "These are records of their affair, their conspiracy to defraud this company and steal my family's legacy. They've been lying to all of us, manipulating and scheming for their own gain." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Zeke's face turned an ugly shade of red, his fists clenched at his sides. "This is ridiculous, Stella," he spat. "You're just a bitter, jealous woman who can't handle the fact that I've moved on. Those documents are forgeries, lies." Natalie nodded, her eyes wide with false innocence. "She's crazy. I'm just an intern. I would never do something like this." But I wasn't finished. "There's more," I said, my voice steady. "Natalie is pregnant. She's been claiming the baby is Zeke's, using it as leverage to force me out of the company." Zeke blanched, his mouth falling open in shock. Natalie's hand flew to her stomach, her eyes darting around the room in panic. "That's not true!" Zeke shouted, his voice cracking. "The baby is mine. Stella is just trying to turn everyone against me." I shook my head, a mirthless smile on my face. "Oh, really? Then how do you explain these text messages detailing your plans to use the pregnancy to extort money from multiple men?" I held up my phone, the damning texts displayed on the screen. The crowd gasped, their faces a mix of shock and disgust. "And as for the paternity of the baby," Violet chimed in, "we have DNA test results proving that Zeke is not the father. Natalie has been playing all of you, just like she played my dad. The room exploded into chaos. Zeke lunged for me, his face contorted with rage, but security held him back. Natalie collapsed to the floor, sobbing and wailing about how she'd been set up. The police arrived moments later, handcuffs at the ready. As they led Zeke and Natalie away, reading them their rights, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. The truth had prevailed, and my father's legacy was safe. I turned to Violet, tears streaming down my face. "We did it, baby. We won." She hugged me tightly, her own tears mingling with mine. "I'm so proud of you, Mom. You're the strongest person I know." As the guests began to disperse, whispering and gossiping about the night's events, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more battles to fight, more wounds to heal, but for now, I savored the victory, the knowledge that I had faced my demons and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. Zeke had tried to break me, to shatter everything I held dear. But he had underestimated the power of a woman's resilience, the unbreakable bond of a mother and daughter united against all odds. And that was a mistake he would regret for the rest of his miserable life. The fallout from the gala was immediate and intense. The news of Zeke and Natalie's arrests spread like wildfire, plastered across every newspaper and gossip site in the city. The company was inundated with calls from reporters, investors, and clients demanding answers. I spent hours in meetings with the board, lawyers, and PR teams, trying to control the narrative and minimize the damage. It was exhausting, but I refused to let Zeke's actions destroy everything we had built. Violet was my rock through it all, keeping me focused and grounded. She even took on some of the media responsibilities, giving interviews and statements with a poise and maturity far beyond her years. "You're amazing. You know that?" I told her one evening, as we sat in my office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork. "I couldn't do this without you." She grinned, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Well, someone has to keep you in line, Mom. Can't have you going all scorned woman on us again." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "I think I'll leave the dramatics to the soap operas from now on." But our moment of levity was short-lived. The next day, I received a call from the prison where Zeke was being held. "Mrs. Delaney, this is Warden Johnson. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your husband was found dead in his cell this morning. It appears to be a suicide." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. For all his flaws and betrayals, Zeke had once been the love of my life, the father of my child. The thought of him taking his own life, alone and desperate, was almost too much to bear. Violet found me in my room, staring blankly at the wall. "Mom, what's wrong?" I told her the news, my voice hollow and distant. She sat beside me, her arms wrapped around my shoulders as I wept. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she whispered. "I know you loved him, despite everything." I nodded, my tears soaking her shirt. "I did. God help me, I did. But I also hated him for what he did to us, to the company. I don't know how to feel." "You don't have to know," Violet said softly. "You're allowed to grieve, to be angry, to feel however you need to feel. But don't let his choices define you, Mom. You're so much stronger than that." Her words were like a beacon in the darkness, guiding me back to shore. I hugged her tightly, marveling at the incredible young woman she had become. The funeral was a small, somber affair. I stood beside Violet, holding her hand as we watched the casket being lowered into the ground. Natalie was there, her belly swollen with her lies, her face a mask of crocodile tears. I felt a flicker of pity for her, mixed with a simmering rage. She had been a pawn in Zeke's game, but she had also made her own choices, her own mistakes. She would have to live with the consequences, just as I would. As the mourners dispersed, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. It was Olivia, my lawyer, her expression grim. "Stella, I need to talk to you," she said, pulling me aside. "It's about Zeke's death. The police found a note in his cell addressed to you." My heart seized in my chest. "What did it say?" Olivia hesitated, her eyes filled with concern. "He claimed that you drove him to it, that you ruined his life and left him no choice. He's trying to make you responsible, even in death." I felt a white-hot anger surge through me, mingled with a sickening dread. Even from beyond the grave, Zeke was still trying to manipulate me, to twist the truth to suit his own ends. "He's not going to win, Olivia," I said, my voice low and fierce. "I won't let him destroy me, not anymore. I'm going to fight back, with everything I have." Olivia nodded, a glimmer of admiration in her eyes. I know you will, Stella, and I'll be right there beside you, every step of the way. As I walked away from the cemetery, Violet's hand clasped tightly in mine. I knew that the battle was far from over. Zeke's final act of cruelty had opened up a new front in the war, one that threatened to consume me from the inside out. But I also knew that I had the strength, the courage, and the love to prevail. I had my daughter, my company, and the truth on my side. And that was a force that even death itself could not defeat. 1 year later, I stood at the podium addressing a room full of journalists and industry leaders. The company had not only survived the scandal, but thrived under my leadership. We had expanded into new markets, taken on innovative projects, and cemented our reputation as a force to be reckoned with. But the road to recovery had been long and painful. In the wake of Zeke's death and the revelation of his final cruel message, I had been besieged by media attacks and legal challenges. Natalie, desperate to save herself, had tried to paint me as a ruthless, vindictive woman who had driven her poor, innocent lover to suicide. It was a narrative that some were all too eager to believe. I faced accusations, investigations, and even death threats from those who bought into Zeke and Natalie's lies. But I refused to back down. With Violet and Olivia by my side, I fought back against every false claim, every attempt to smear my name and my company. We dug deeper into Zeke and Natalie's past, uncovering a trail of deception and manipulation that stretched back years. We found other women Zeke had targeted, other companies he had tried to infiltrate and destroy. We exposed Natalie's history of extortion and fraud, revealing the true depths of her cruelty and greed. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The media started to question Natalie's credibility, to see through the cracks in her story. The legal challenges against me were dismissed, one by one, as the evidence of my innocence mounted. And then, the final blow. Natalie's web of lies unraveled completely when it was revealed that the child she had claimed was Zeke's had actually been fathered by another married man she had been scheming against. She was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and extortion. As I watched her being led away in handcuffs, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction. She had thought she could destroy me, could use my pain and grief as a weapon against me. But she had underestimated the strength of a woman who had already lost everything and survived. Violet, now a successful artist in her own right, had channeled her own pain and anger into her work. Her pieces, raw and powerful, had garnered critical acclaim and sparked important conversations about toxic masculinity and the resilience of women. "I'm so proud of you, Violet," I told her, as we celebrated her latest exhibition. "You've taken the darkest moments of our lives and turned them into something beautiful, something meaningful." She hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with tears. "I learned from the best, Mom. You showed me what it means to be strong, to fight for what's right, no matter the cost." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace and purpose that had eluded me for so long. "We've both come so far, haven't we? Sometimes I can hardly believe it." "Believe it, Mom," Violet said, her voice filled with conviction. "We're survivors, you and me. We're unbreakable." As I looked out over the city skyline, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and gold, I knew she was right. Zeke and Natalie had tried to break me, to shatter my world into a million pieces. But I had taken those pieces and rebuilt myself, stronger and more resilient than ever before. I had my daughter, my company, and the knowledge that I had faced the worst that life could throw at me and emerged victorious. I was a survivor, a fighter, a woman who had claimed her power and her truth. And I knew, with a certainty that burned bright in my soul, that nothing and no one could ever take that away from me again. As I stepped down from the podium to a standing ovation, I caught Violet's eye in the crowd. She grinned at me, her fist raised in a gesture of solidarity and triumph. "Here's to the future, Mom," she mouthed, her eyes sparkling with pride and love. I raised my own fist in return, feeling a rush of gratitude and joy that brought tears to my eyes. Here's to the future indeed, a future that we had fought for, that we had earned, that we had claimed as our own. A future that belonged to us and us alone. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Zeke and Natalie sat at the defendant's table, their faces pale and drawn. They had been denied bail, deemed a flight risk after the extent of their crimes had been revealed. I sat in the front row, Violet and Olivia beside me. We had spent months preparing for this moment, gathering evidence and testimony, yet building an airtight case against the two people who had nearly destroyed our lives. As the judge entered the room, I felt a shiver run down my spine. This was it, the moment of truth, the final reckoning. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Valerie, laid out the case against Zeke and Natalie with ruthless efficiency. She detailed their schemes, their lies, their callous disregard for the lives they had ruined. She called witness after witness, each one painting a damning picture of greed, manipulation, and betrayal. Former employees, clients, even some of Natalie's other victims, they all took the stand, their voices shaking with anger and pain. And then it was my turn. As I walked to the witness box, I felt a rush of nerves and adrenaline, but I also felt a sense of clarity, a deep conviction in the truth of my words. I told my story from the beginning, the love, the trust, the dreams that Zeke and I had shared, the slow, insidious unraveling of our marriage as his ego and ambition consumed him, the devastating discovery of his affair, his betrayal, his cruelty. I spoke of the battle to save my company, my father's legacy, from their clutches, the lies, the smears, the legal challenges that had nearly broken me. But I also spoke of the strength I had found in my daughter, in my friends, in the power of the truth. As I finished my testimony, I looked directly at Zeke and Natalie, my eyes blazing with a fierce, righteous anger. "You thought you could destroy me," I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "You thought you could take everything I had, everything I loved, and crush it beneath your feet. But you were wrong." Zeke's face twisted with rage. His fists clenched at his sides. Natalie's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, a way out. "I am not the weak, broken woman you thought I was," I continued, my voice rising with each word. "I am a survivor, a fighter, a mother who would move heaven and earth to protect her child, and I will not rest until justice is served, until you pay for every last one of your crimes." The courtroom erupted in applause, the sound washing over me like a wave. I looked over at Violet, tears streaming down her face, her eyes shining with pride and love. The judge called for order, his gavel banging against the bench. And then, the moment we had all been waiting for. In the case of the state versus Ezekiel Delaney and Natalie Summers, on the charges of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy, the jury finds the defendants guilty on all counts. The words hit me like a thunderbolt, a shock of joy and relief that brought me to my knees. Violet and Olivia were there in an instant, their arms around me, their tears mingling with my own. I watched as Zeke and Natalie were led away in handcuffs, their faces contorted with shock and disbelief. They had thought themselves invincible, untouchable, above the law and the consequences of their actions. But they had been wrong. They had underestimated the power of justice, the strength of a woman's will, the unbreakable bond of a mother and daughter united against all odds. As I walked out of the courtroom, my head held high, my heart filled with a fierce, unshakable joy, I knew that this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, more wounds to heal. But I also knew that I had the strength, the courage, and the love to face them all. I had my daughter, my company, and the knowledge that I had faced the worst that life could throw at me and emerged victorious. I was a survivor, a fighter, a woman who had claimed her power and her truth. And nothing, not even the darkest of demons, could ever take that away from me again. 5 years later, I stood on the balcony of my new office, overlooking the city skyline. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the buildings and streets below. It was a moment of quiet reflection, a chance to take stock of how far I had come. The company had thrived under my leadership, growing and expanding in ways I had never dreamed possible. We had taken on new challenges, new projects, new frontiers, and emerged stronger and more successful than ever before. But it wasn't just the business that had flourished. Violet had blossomed into an incredible young woman, her artistic talent and passion taking her to new heights. She had just opened her first solo exhibition, a stunning collection of pieces that explored themes of resilience, healing, and the power of the human spirit. As I looked out over the city, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that had eluded me for so long. The wounds of the past had healed. The scars faded into a distant memory. I had found a new sense of purpose, a new lease on life, a new reason to wake up every morning with a smile on my face. And yet I knew that I could never forget the lessons I had learned, the battles I had fought, the strength I had found within myself. Those experiences had shaped me, molded me into the woman I was today. A woman who knew her own worth, her own power, her own unbreakable spirit. A knock on the door startled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Olivia, a smile on her face, a file in her hand. "Sorry to interrupt, Stella, but I thought you should see this," she said, handing me the file. I opened it, my eyes scanning the pages, my heart skipping a beat. It was a report from the parole board detailing Zeke and Natalie's latest hearing. "They were denied," Olivia said softly. "The board cited their lack of remorse as their continued attempts to manipulate and deceive. They'll be staying behind bars for a long time to come." I felt a rush of emotions, relief, sadness, a twinge of pity for the broken, twisted souls they had become. But I also felt a sense of closure, a final chapter in the story of our shared past. "Thank you, Olivia," I said, my voice steady and strong, "for everything you've done, for standing by me through it all. I couldn't have made it without you." She smiled, her eyes shining with warmth and affection. "You give yourself too little credit, Stella. You're the strongest, most resilient person I know. You've overcome more than most people could even imagine." I hugged her, feeling a rush of gratitude and love for this woman who had been my rock, my anchor, my unwavering supporter through the darkest of times. As she left the office, I turned back to the balcony, my eyes drawn to a small framed photo on the wall. It was a picture of my father, his face beaming with pride and joy, his arm around a much younger version of myself. I felt a pang of grief, a moment of longing for the man who had been my guiding light, my North Star, my constant source of love and support. But I also felt a sense of deep, abiding gratitude for the legacy he had left me, the values he had instilled in me, the strength he had helped me find within myself. "I miss you, Dad," I whispered, my fingers tracing the outline of his face. "But I know you're always with me, always watching over me. And I promise I'll make you proud. I'll honor your memory every single day." As I stepped back from the photo, I felt a sense of renewed purpose, a fire burning bright in my heart. I had been through hell and back, had faced the worst that life could throw at me, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. I was a survivor, a fighter, a woman who had claimed her power and her truth, and I knew, with a certainty that blazed like the sun, that nothing could ever hold me back, ever again. I smiled, my eyes fixed on the horizon, my heart filled with hope and possibility. The future was mine, and I was ready to face it, head on, with all the strength and courage of a true warrior. The phone rings, jolting me out of my thoughts. I glance at the caller ID and freeze. It's Sadie, my daughter-in-law. My stomach twists into knots as I hesitate, my finger hovering over the answer button. Why would she be calling me out of the blue like this? We've barely spoken since the falling out with my son Jack. I take a deep breath and answer, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hello?" "Meredith, hi." Sadie's overly cheerful voice grates on my nerves. "I'm so glad I caught you. Listen, Jack and I were hoping you could come over for dinner tonight. We have something special planned." I frown, immediately suspicious. "Dinner? Tonight? Isn't this a bit last minute?" "I know, I'm sorry," Sadie gushes. "It's just that we have some exciting news to share, and we really want you to be a part of it. Please say you'll come." I hesitate, my mind racing. It's been months since I've seen my granddaughter, Avery, not since I confronted Sadie about the bruises I found on Avery's arms. Bruises I'm convinced Sadie caused. But when I reported my suspicions, Sadie twisted everything around, making me look like a mentally unstable grandmother. The authorities found no proof. In the end, Jack believed his manipulative wife's lies over his own mother's concerns. The painful memories flashed through my mind. Marrying my college sweetheart Tom, the love of my life. Raising our twin boys Jack and Liam, the lights of our lives. Becoming a young widow far too soon when a drunk driver stole Tom away. Pouring my grief into building a successful catering business to support my sons. The joy of becoming a grandmother when Jack and his new wife Sadie had little Avery. And then the mounting dread as my instincts screamed that something was wrong. The way Avery flinched from Sadie's touch, the mysterious injuries Sadie couldn't explain. My world crumbling as everyone turned against me for trying to protect my granddaughter. "Meredith, are you still there?" Sadie's insistent voice snaps me back to the present. I close my eyes briefly, steeling myself. As much as it pains me, I can't pass up this chance to see Avery. To make sure she's okay, even if I have to play nice with Sadie to do it. "Yes, I'm here," I reply, forcing a neutral tone. "Dinner sounds lovely. What time should I be there?" After noting down the details and ending the call, I lean back in my chair, my heart heavy. I have a bad feeling about this sudden invitation. In my bones, I know Sadie is up to something. I just pray that whatever it is won't put Avery in harm's way again. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I grab my purse and keys. If Sadie thinks she can fool me twice, she's got another thing coming. This time, I'll be ready for her games. This time, I won't let her hurt the ones I love most. Not again. Not ever. It's been 3 months since that uncomfortable dinner at Jack and Sadie's house. 3 months of walking on eggshells, trying to maintain a relationship with my granddaughter Avery while tiptoeing around Sadie's mercurial moods. I've been watching her like a hawk, but Sadie's a master at putting on a show when others are around. Today, Sadie called me in a panic, begging me to watch Avery while she runs off to yet another last-minute audition. She's been chasing her failed acting dreams for years, constantly leaving Avery in my care with barely a moment's notice. I don't mind spending time with my granddaughter, but I worry about the instability Sadie brings to her life. When I arrive at their house, Sadie practically shoves Avery into my arms, already halfway out the door. "Thanks so much, Meredith. You're a lifesaver." She calls over her shoulder before peeling out of the driveway. I sigh and look down at Avery, who clings to me tightly. My heart clenches as I notice a fresh bruise peeking out from under her sleeve. Gently, I pull back the fabric to get a better look. "Avery, sweetie, how did you get this owie?" I ask, keeping my voice soft and non-threatening. Avery's eyes fill with tears. I fell down. The rehearsed response sets off alarm bells in my head. Kneeling down to Avery's level, I take her tiny hands in mine. "Avery, you know you can tell Grandma Murmur anything, right? I'm here to keep you safe." Avery hesitates, glancing around fearfully as if Sadie might pop out any second. Then in a whisper she confesses, "Mommy gets mad sometimes. She grabs my arm too hard." White-hot rage courses through my veins, but I force myself to stay calm for Avery's sake. "Thank you for telling me the truth, brave girl. I won't let Mommy hurt you anymore." That evening, I confront Sadie the moment she returns. I lay out the evidence of Avery's injuries and repeat what Avery told me. But Sadie just laughs in my face. "You're being paranoid, Meredith. Avery's a clumsy child, and you know how kids exaggerate," she scoffs, rolling her eyes. "I know what I saw, Sadie. If you ever lay a hand on Avery again, I swear I'll—" Sadie cuts me off, her eyes flashing with malice. "You'll what? Who do you think Jack will believe? His devoted wife or his crazy old mother? I can ruin you, Meredith. I can make sure you never see Avery again." Her words knock the wind out of me. I know she's capable of following through on her threats. I've seen how she's wrapped Jack around her finger, poisoning him against me. In a last-ditch effort, I call Child Services to report Sadie's abuse. But just as Sadie predicted, they find no concrete proof. It's my word against hers. And when Jack finds out about the investigation, he's furious. "How could you accuse Sadie of something so horrible? She's an amazing mother," he shouts, pacing angrily in front of me. "Jack, please, I'm telling you the truth. Sadie is not who you think she is," I plead, desperate for him to see reason. But Sadie has already gotten to him. "No, Mom, Sadie's right. You're unhinged. You need help." The betrayal cuts deep. My own son, siding with his abusive wife over his own mother. I can hardly breathe through the pain. In the end, Sadie makes good on her threats. She slaps me with a restraining order, banning me from seeing Avery. Jack cuts me out of his life completely, believing Sadie's lies about my supposed mental instability. Alone in my house, I crumple to the floor, my heart shattered beyond repair. How did it come to this? How did I let Sadie destroy my family? But even as despair threatens to swallow me whole, a flicker of determination sparks to life in my chest. I won't let Sadie win. I won't let her corrupt my granddaughter. Somehow, some way, I will find a way to expose her true colors and save Avery. No matter the cost. Months drag by, each day a painful reminder of the gaping hole in my heart where Avery used to be. The restraining order Sadie slapped me with keeps me away from my granddaughter. And Jack refuses to take my calls. I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of helplessness and despair. But even in my darkest moments, I refuse to give up. I hire a private investigator to dig into Sadie's past, desperate for any shred of evidence that might expose her true nature. What the PI uncovers makes my blood run cold. Sadie, it turns out, has a history of latching on to wealthy men, bleeding them dry, and then moving on to her next target. She's left a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in her wake, and now she's set her sights on my son. Armed with this new information, I confront Liam, Jack's twin brother. I know he's always had a soft spot for Sadie, but surely he can't condone her behavior. Liam, please, you have to help me. Sadie is bad news. She's hurting Avery and using Jack for his money, I plead, showing him the evidence the PI gathered. Liam shifts uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I don't know, Mom. Sadie's always been good to me. Maybe you're just overreacting. Frustration boils up inside me. Open your eyes, Liam. She's manipulating you, just like she's manipulating Jack. Can't you see that? But Liam just shakes his head, backing away. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't get involved. This is between you and Sadie. I watch him walk away, my heart sinking. Even my own flesh and blood won't stand up for what's right. Desperate, I turn to Jack, hoping that the proof of Sadie's financial infidelity will be enough to snap him out of her spell. I corner him at his office, laying out the documents that show Sadie has been siphoning money from his company to fund her lavish lifestyle. Jack's face hardens as he flips through the papers. For a moment, I think I've finally gotten through to him. But then Sadie bursts in, crocodile tears streaming down her face. Jack, baby, don't listen to her. She's crazy, remember? She's just trying to tear us apart. Sadie wails, clinging to Jack's arm. Jack hesitates, glancing between me and Sadie. I hold my breath, praying he'll finally see the truth. But Sadie's hold on him is too strong. Jack's expression turns to one of disgust as he throws the documents back at me. Enough, Mom. I'm sick of your lies and manipulations. Sadie is my wife, and I trust her completely. I want you out of my life, for good this time. His words hit me like a physical blow. I stumble back, my vision blurring with tears. Jack, please, I'm just trying to protect you. To protect Avery, I whisper, my voice cracking. But Jack is already turning away, his arm around Sadie's shoulders. Stay away from my family, Mom. I mean it. You're dead to me. The world tilts on its axis as I watch my son walk away, choosing his abuser over his own mother. The pain is too much to bear. I clutch at my chest, gasping for air as a searing agony rips through me. The last thing I remember before everything goes black is the sound of Sadie's mocking laughter echoing in my ears. I wake up in a hospital bed, hooked up to beeping machines. The doctors tell me I suffered a severe heart attack brought on by stress and emotional trauma. They urge me to rest, to avoid any further upsets. But how can I rest when my granddaughter is still in danger, when my own sons have turned their backs on me? Staring at the sterile white ceiling, I make a vow to myself. No matter what it takes, no matter how long, I will find a way to save Avery and expose Sadie for the monster she truly is, even if it destroys me in the process. A year has passed since my heart attack, a year of painful isolation and unanswered questions. Jack and Liam remain stubbornly out of reach, and every attempt to contact Avery is met with stony silence. The ache in my chest has nothing to do with my physical health and everything to do with the gaping hole where my family used to be. So when Sadie shows up on my doorstep one rainy evening, bruised and sobbing, I'm equal parts shocked and wary. She collapses into my arms, her body shaking with tremors. Meredith, please, you have to help me. Jack, he's out of control. He's been hitting me, and I'm afraid he's going to hurt Avery next. She gasps out between hiccuping breaths. I stiffen, my mind reeling. Could I have been wrong all this time? Could Jack, my gentle, loving son, truly be capable of such violence? I didn't know where else to go. I'm so sorry for everything, for turning Jack against you. I was just scared, Sadie whimpers, clinging to me like a lifeline. Against my better judgment, I find myself softening. The bruises on her face and arms look all too real, and the terror in her eyes is palpable. Shh, it's okay. You're safe now, I murmur, guiding her into the house. Over the next few days, as Sadie hides out in my guest room, she spins a tale of horror and abuse that makes my stomach churn. She describes how Jack flew into a rage when she confronted him about his drinking, how he slammed her against the wall and choked her until she blacked out. She shows me the finger-shaped bruises on her throat, the cigarette burns on her thighs. "He said he'd kill me if I ever left him, Meredith. He said he'd make sure I never saw Avery again," Sadie confesses, her voice hollow with despair. But doubt gnaws at me, warring with the instinct to protect. I think back to all the times I suspected Sadie of hurting Avery, of manipulating Jack. Could I have misjudged her so badly? Sadie seems to sense my hesitation. She takes my hands in hers, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I know I've given you every reason not to trust me, Meredith, but I swear I'm telling you the truth. Jack is a monster, and Avery and I need your help to escape him." Looking into her pleading face, I make a decision. I can't turn my back on her, not if there's even a chance that Avery is in danger. Over the next few weeks, as Sadie and I grow closer, I start to question everything I thought I knew. She's so different from the cold, calculating woman I once believed her to be. She's vulnerable, broken, desperate for a mother's love and guidance. I find myself opening up to her, sharing stories of Jack and Liam's childhood, of my own struggles as a young widow. Sadie listens intently, offering comfort and understanding in return. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I don't feel so alone. But even as I start to let my guard down, nagging doubts persist. Something about Sadie's story doesn't quite add up. The way she flinches at odd moments, the inconsistencies in her timeline. I try to push my suspicions aside, telling myself I'm just being paranoid. Until the day I accidentally overhear a phone call that shatters everything. Sadie is in the guest room, the door cracked open, just a sliver. Her voice floats out, low and urgent. "I can't keep this up much longer, Liam." She's starting to ask too many questions. We need to move forward with the plan before she figures out what's really going on. Ice floods my veins as the truth hits me like a sledgehammer. Sadie hasn't changed at all. She's been playing me for a fool, just like she played Jack. And now she's plotting with my own son to destroy what's left of my family. Betrayal tastes like ashes in my mouth as I confront the ugly truth. Sadie, the woman I've opened my home and heart to, is nothing more than a viper in sheep's clothing. The bruises, the tears, the tales of abuse, all a carefully crafted lie to manipulate me. I think back to all the inconsistencies in her story, the nagging doubts I pushed aside in my desperation to believe her. How could I have been so blind? Determined to uncover the full extent of her deception, I wait until Sadie leaves for one of her mysterious errands and slip into the guest room. It doesn't take long to find what I'm looking for, a small memory card tucked inside her jewelry box. With shaking hands, I insert the card into my laptop. The screen fills with video after damning video of Sadie coaching Avery, my sweet, innocent granddaughter, to lie. "Remember, Avery, when Grandma asks about the bruises, you say Daddy did it. You say he hits you and Mommy, okay?" Sadie's sickly sweet voice makes my stomach turn. Avery, her eyes wide and confused, nods obediently. "Daddy hits me and Mommy." Bile rises in my throat as the truth sinks in. Sadie has been orchestrating this whole charade, using her own daughter as a pawn in her twisted game, and I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. I'm so engrossed in the horrifying footage that I don't hear Sadie return until it's too late. She bursts into the room, her face twisting with rage when she sees what I'm watching. "You nosy bitch, you just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?" She snarls, lunging for the laptop. I jerk it out of her reach, my own anger boiling over. "How could you, Sadie? How could you use your own child like this? Avery deserves so much better than a mother like you." Sadie throws her head back and laughs, the sound chilling me to the bone. "Oh, spare me the righteous indignation, Meredith. You're just as pathetic as the rest of them, so desperate for love, for family, that you'll believe anything I say." She stalks closer, her eyes glittering with malice. "You want to know the truth? Fine. I never loved Jack. I never loved Avery. They were just means to an end, a way to get what I wanted." I recoil in horror, my heart breaking for my son, for my granddaughter. "And what is it you want, Sadie? Money? Power?" Sadie smirks, her lips curling into a cruel sneer. "All of the above, and more. I want to destroy you, Meredith. I want to take everything you love and burn it to the ground. just like you tried to do to me. The pieces click into place with sickening clarity. All the lies, the manipulation, the abuse, it was all a twisted form of revenge, a way to punish me for seeing through her facade. You're sick, Sadie. You need help, I whisper, backing away slowly. Sadie's eyes narrow, her gaze locking onto the laptop clutched to my chest. Give me the memory card, Meredith. Give it to me, and maybe I'll let you live. But I'm done being her victim, her pawn. I've spent too long letting her control me, letting her poison my family. In one swift motion, I yank the memory card from the laptop and shove it down my shirt, into my bra. Sadie shrieks with fury, launching herself at me like a rabid animal. We grapple on the floor, a tangle of clawing fingers and flying fists. Sadie is younger, stronger, fueled by a manic rage. But I have something she doesn't, a mother's love, a grandmother's fierce determination to protect her own. I manage to grab a heavy paperweight from the desk, slamming it against Sadie's temple with all my might. She crumples to the ground, blood trickling from the gash on her head. For a moment I'm frozen, staring at her unconscious form in shock. Then, with trembling fingers, I reach for my phone and dial 911. I need the police, right away. I have evidence of a crime. Please hurry. As sirens wail in the distance, I slump against the wall, my heart racing. I know the battle is far from over, but for the first time in years, I feel a flicker of hope. Sadie's reign of terror ends today. I'll make sure of it. The memory card feels like a lead weight against my chest as I watch Sadie's unconscious form, waiting for the police to arrive. Part of me is tempted to flee, to take the evidence and run. But I know I can't do that. I have to see this through, for Avery's sake. With shaking hands, I retrieve my phone and start recording. If Sadie wakes up, I need her confession on tape. I need irrefutable proof of her crimes. Minutes tick by, each one feeling like an eternity. Just as I'm about to give up hope, Sadie stirs, groaning as she clutches her bleeding head. You fucking bitch, she hisses, struggling to sit up. You're going to pay for that. I keep the camera trained on her, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through my veins. It's over, Sadie. The police are on their way. They'll see the videos of you coaching Avery to lie. They'll know what you did. Sadie's eyes widen, then narrow into slits. You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing the victim, the concerned grandmother, but you're just as twisted as I am, Meredith. You're the one who turned your own sons against each other. You're the one who couldn't let go, couldn't accept that Jack chose me over you. I flinch at her words, the grain of truth in them stinging like salt in a wound. I may have made mistakes, Sadie, but I never abused a child. I never manipulated and lied and cheated like you. Sadie lets out a harsh bark of laughter. Oh, but you did. You lied to yourself every single day. You pretended to be this perfect, loving mother, when in reality, you were just a pathetic old woman desperate for attention. She staggers to her feet, her face twisted into a grotesque mask of hatred. You want my confession? Fine. I did it. I coached Avery to say Jack abused her. I siphoned money from his company. I fucked his brother. And I'd do it all again just to see the look on your face when you realized you'd lost everything. Nausea churns in my gut at the sheer depravity of her words. Why, Sadie? Why go to such lengths to destroy my family? Sadie's lips curl into a sneer. Because I could. Because it was easy. Because none of you ever saw me coming. She takes a step forward, her eyes glinting with a manic light. And now I'm going to make sure you never tell anyone what you know. Fear lances through me as Sadie lunges, her hands outstretched like claws. I dodge to the side, but not fast enough. She catches me by the hair, yanking me backwards. We tumble to the ground, my phone skittering out of reach. Sadie straddles my chest, her fingers wrapping around my throat. You should have minded your own business, you meddling cunt, she snarls, tightening her grip. Black spots dance across my vision as I gasp for air. I claw at Sadie's hands, but she's too strong, too fueled by rage and desperation. Just as I'm about to black out, the door bursts open. Sadie's weight is suddenly gone, replaced by blessed oxygen flooding my lungs. Through blurry eyes, I see Jack hauling Sadie off me, his face a mask of fury. Get off her, you psychotic bitch! Sadie shrieks and thrashes in his grip, spitting curses. I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you! But Jack doesn't let go. He wrestles her to the ground, pinning her arms behind her back. It's over, Sadie. I know everything. I heard your confession. "The police are on their way," he says, his voice shaking with emotion. Sadie goes limp, her fight draining away as the reality of her situation sinks in. You set me up. You knew I'd come here." Jack nods, his jaw tight. "I've been onto you for months, Sadie. I just needed proof. And thanks to my mother, now I have it." He looks up at me, his eyes shining with tears. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I let her tear our family apart." Sobs rack my chest as I crawl towards my son, my baby boy. He gathers me into his arms, holding me tight as the sound of sirens fills the air. "It's okay, Mom. It's over now. She can't hurt us anymore." And for the first time in years, I believe him. The aftermath of Sadie's arrest is a whirlwind of police statements, media scrutiny, and legal proceedings. Through it all, Jack remains by my side, a steadfast presence as we navigate the fallout of his wife's betrayal. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he says for the 100th time, his eyes haunted by guilt and regret. "I should have listened to you from the start. I should have seen through her lies." I squeeze his hand, offering what comfort I can. "You couldn't have known, Jack. Sadie fooled us all. The important thing is that we're together now, and Avery is safe." At the mention of his daughter, Jack's face crumples. "I failed her, Mom. I failed my own child. What kind of father am I?" "The kind who loves his daughter enough to admit his mistakes and fight for her," I say firmly. "Avery is lucky to have you, Jack. Don't ever doubt that." As the days turn into weeks, the true extent of Sadie's crimes comes to light. The police uncover a trail of fraud, embezzlement, and blackmail stretching back years. It seems Sadie had been planning her revenge long before she ever met Jack. And then there's Liam, my other son, the one I thought had betrayed me along with Sadie. When he finally comes to see me, his face is etched with shame and remorse. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispers, his voice choked with tears. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Sadie, she had something on me, something I couldn't let Jack find out about." My heart aches for my broken, misguided boy. "What did she have on you, Liam?" He takes a shuddering breath, avoiding my gaze. I embezzled money from Jack's company years ago. I was in debt, and I didn't know what else to do. Sadie found out, and she used it to blackmail me into helping her." Anger and disappointment war with the overwhelming love I feel for my son. "Oh, Liam, why didn't you come to me? To Jack? We would have helped you." Liam shakes his head, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "I was too ashamed. I thought I could handle it on my own, but Sadie, she's a master manipulator. She made me believe that I had no choice but to do what she said." I pull my son into my arms, holding him tight as he sobs against my shoulder. "It's okay, Liam. We'll get through this together, as a family." And we do. Jack files for divorce and sole custody of Avery, using Sadie's confession and the evidence from the memory card to prove her unfit as a mother. Liam turns himself in for his role in the embezzlement, ready to face the consequences of his actions. Through it all, Avery remains our shining light, our reason to keep going. With Sadie behind bars, Jack and I work together to give her the stable, loving home she deserves. "I love you, Grandma," she whispers one night as I tuck her into bed, her little arms wrapped around my neck. Tears sting my eyes as I hug her close, marveling at the resilience of this brave, beautiful child. "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in this world." As I watch her drift off to sleep, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. For so long I'd been consumed by anger and bitterness, by the need for revenge against the woman who'd stolen my family. But now, with Sadie gone and my sons by my side, I realize that the only thing that truly matters is the love we have for each other. We may be broken, but we're not beyond repair. With time, patience, and the unshakable bond of family, I know we'll heal. We'll find our way back to each other, stronger than ever before. And that, in the end, is the sweetest revenge of all. 5 years have passed since Sadie's arrest, and life has settled into a new normal. Jack and Avery moved in with me after the divorce, and together we've built a home filled with love, laughter, and healing. Avery, now a precocious 10-year-old, has blossomed under our care. Gone is the timid, frightened child she once was, replaced by a confident, vibrant girl who lights up every room she enters. Today, as we celebrate Avery's birthday, I can't help but marvel at how far we've come. The backyard is filled with balloons and streamers, the air thick with the scent of barbecue and the sound of children's laughter. Jack catches my eye from across the lawn, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He looks lighter, unburdened by the weight of Sadie's betrayal. In the years since the divorce, he's thrown himself into being the best father he can be, determined to make up for lost time. As I watch him scoop Avery into his arms, spinning her around until she shrieks with glee, my heart swells with pride and gratitude. My son, my brave, resilient boy, has come so far. And then there's Liam, the prodigal son returned. After serving his time for embezzlement, he's worked hard to earn back our trust, to prove himself worthy of a second chance. It hasn't been easy, but slowly, surely, we've welcomed him back into the fold. Avery adores her Uncle Liam, and he dotes on her in return, showering her with affection and attention. As the party winds down and the guests start to leave, Avery bounds over to me, her face flushed with excitement. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" I smile, pulling her onto my lap. "Of course, sweetheart, what is it?" Avery fidgets, suddenly shy. "I was wondering, would it be okay if I called you Mom?" Tears spring to my eyes at the unexpected request. "Oh, Avery, are you sure that's what you want?" She nods, her little face solemn. "You've always been like a mom to me, Grandma. You take care of me, and you love me, just like a real mom should. And I love you too." I hug her close, my heart bursting with emotion. "I would be honored to be your mom, Avery. I love you more than anything in this world." Jack, who's been listening nearby, comes over to join us, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Avery, and I know it's what your grandpa would have wanted too." We sit there for a long moment, holding each other tight, basking in the warmth of our little family. It's not the family I ever expected to have, but it's the one I cherish with every fiber of my being. Later that night, as I tuck Avery into bed, she looks up at me with sleepy eyes. "Mom, can you tell me a story about Grandpa?" I settle beside her, stroking her hair as I begin to speak. "Your grandpa was the kindest, most loving man I ever knew. He would have adored you, Avery, just like I do." As I spin tales of Tom's gentle heart and quirky sense of humor, I feel his presence all around us, watching over our little family with pride and love. We've been through so much, endured so many trials and heartaches. But we've emerged stronger, more united than ever before. Sadie tried to destroy us, to tear us apart with her lies and manipulations, but in the end, she only brought us closer together, forging an unbreakable bond that will last a lifetime. As I look around at my son, my granddaughter, and the home we've built together, I know that this is what true happiness feels like. This is what it means to be a family. And no matter what the future holds, no matter what challenges we may face, I know that we'll face them together. Always. You're nothing without me, Evelyn. Remember that. Dominic's words cut deep as I cradle our newborn daughter, Aria. I look down at her innocent face, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I feel a wave of despair wash over me. How did I get here? How did I let myself become so trapped, so helpless? I've always been a strong, independent woman, but Dominic has a way of making me feel small and insignificant. Since Aria's birth, his controlling behavior has escalated to new heights. He dictates my every move, from what I wear to who I can see. He even controls our finances, leaving me completely dependent on during my maternity leave. "I'm going out," Dominic announces, grabbing his keys from the counter. "I expect dinner to be ready when I get back." I nod silently, not daring to argue. I've learned the hard way that defiance only leads to more pain. As the door slams behind him, I let out a shaky breath and hug Aria closer to my chest. I think back to the early days of our relationship when Dominic seemed like the perfect man. Charming, successful, and attentive, he swept me off my feet. Our whirlwind romance led to a quick marriage, and before I knew it, I was pregnant with Aria. But now, as I sit alone in our lavish apartment, surrounded by all the trappings of wealth, I feel more trapped than ever. Dominic's true colors have emerged, and I'm left wondering how I ever fell for his facade. A sudden cry from Aria jolts me back to the present. I rock her gently, whispering soothing words as I try to calm her. But even as I comfort my daughter, I can feel the weight of Dominic's control bearing down on me. I glance at the clock, realizing I only have a few hours before he returns. I need to start dinner, but the thought of facing another evening of his criticism and verbal abuse makes my stomach churn. As I lay Arya down in her crib, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me is a shell of her former self. Dark circles under her eyes, a forced smile masking the pain. I hardly recognize her. But as I watch Arya drift off to sleep, a flicker of determination sparks within me. I can't let my daughter grow up thinking this is normal, that this is what love looks like. I need to find a way out, not just for myself but for her. I take a deep breath and straighten my shoulders. I may feel trapped and helpless now, but I refuse to let Dominic break me. I will find a way to escape his grasp, to build a better life for Arya and myself. As I head to the kitchen to start dinner, I silently vow to myself that this will be the last meal I cook under Dominic's roof. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I will find the strength to break free from this nightmare. For Arya's sake and for my own, I have to. As I sit in the darkness of Arya's nursery, my mind drifts back to the beginning of my relationship with Dominic. It all seemed so perfect, like a fairy tale come to life. I was 28, a successful young woman with a promising career when I met him at a charity event. He was 35, charming and incredibly handsome. I was instantly smitten. Our courtship was a whirlwind of expensive dinners, lavish gifts, and grand gestures. Dominic made me feel like I was the center of his universe. He promised me the world, and I believed every word. "Evelyn, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he whispered in my ear as we danced at a gala. "I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." I melted into his arms, convinced that I had found my soulmate. When he proposed just 3 months later, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Our wedding was a grand affair, with no expense spared. I felt like a princess as I walked down the aisle in my designer gown, Dominic waiting for me at the altar with a smile that could light up the room. "I love you, Evelyn," he said as he slipped the ring on my finger. "I promise to cherish you forever." I believed him with all my heart. We settled into married life, and for a while everything was perfect. Dominic continued to shower me with attention and gifts, and I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. But then, just a few months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. I was overjoyed, but Dominic's reaction was not what I expected. "A baby now?" he asked, his brow furrowed. I thought we agreed to wait a few years. I was taken aback by his response. We had discussed starting a family, but I didn't realize he had such a specific timeline in mind. "I know it's a bit sooner than we planned, but isn't it wonderful news?" I asked, trying to gauge his reaction. Dominic's face softened, and he pulled me into an embrace. "Of course it is, darling. I'm just surprised, that's all. We'll make it work." But as my pregnancy progressed, I began to notice subtle changes in Dominic's behavior. He became more controlling, more possessive. He started questioning my every move, demanding to know where I was and who I was with at all times. I chalked it up to nerves about impending fatherhood and tried to reassure him that everything would be fine. But deep down, a nagging feeling told me that something wasn't right. When Arya was born, Dominic's behavior only intensified. He criticized everything I did, from the way I changed her diaper to the way I held her. He insisted on being present for every feeding, every bath time, every moment of her life. At first, I thought he was just being an attentive father, but as the weeks turned into months, I realized that his attention was more about control than love. "You're doing it wrong," he would snap as I tried to soothe Arya's cries. "Give her to me. I'll show you how it's done." I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his every mood and whim. I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but I didn't dare complain. I was afraid of what he might do if I pushed back. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I missed. The way he isolated me from my friends and family, the way he made me feel like I was nothing without him. I was so blinded by love that I couldn't see the truth. But now, as I sit in the darkness, watching my daughter sleep, I know I can't let this continue. I have to find a way out, not just for myself, but for Arya. She deserves a better life than this. I just hope I have the strength to do what needs to be done. Arya's cries pierce the night, and I stumble out of bed, exhausted. It's been weeks since I've had a full night's sleep, and the toll is starting to show. As I enter the nursery, I find Dominic already there, holding our daughter. "I've got this," he says, his voice cold. "Go back to bed." I hesitate, wanting to comfort my own child, but the look in Dominic's eyes tells me not to argue. I retreat to our bedroom, feeling helpless and alone. The next morning, I'm in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Dominic storms in, his face contorted with anger. "Why isn't the laundry done?" he demands, holding up a shirt. "I have a big meeting today, and I need this pressed." I glance at the clock, realizing I've lost track of time while caring for Arya. "I'm sorry, I'll do it right now," I say, reaching for the shirt, but Dominic yanks it away, his eyes narrowing. "You're always making excuses." He sneers. "I work hard to provide for this family, and you can't even handle simple household chores." I feel my cheeks burn with shame and frustration. "I'm doing the best I can," I protest weakly. Dominic scoffs. "Your best isn't good enough. I deserve better than this." He storms out of the kitchen, leaving me fighting back tears. I know I should stand up for myself, but I'm too tired, too beaten down. Later that day, I'm trying to soothe a fussy Arya when the phone rings. It's the bank, informing me that my credit card has been declined. Confused, I hang up and log into our online banking account. What I see makes my blood run cold. Our savings account, the one I thought we were using for Arya's college fund, is nearly empty. Thousands of dollars, gone without a trace. I confront Dominic that evening, holding up the bank statement with shaking hands. "What is this?" I demand. "Where did all our money go?" Dominic barely glances at the paper before shrugging. "I had some expenses come up. Business stuff you wouldn't understand." "Business stuff?" I echo, incredulous. "Dominic, that was our daughter's college fund. How could you just spend it without telling me?" He fixes me with a cold stare. "I don't have to tell you anything. I'm the one who earns the money in this family. I'll spend it how I see fit." I reel back as if slapped. "But we're supposed to be partners," I whisper. "We should make these decisions together." Dominic laughs, a harsh, ugly sound. "Partners? You're nothing without me, Evelyn. I gave you everything. This house, those clothes, that baby. You owe me." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Is this what our marriage has become? A transaction, a debt to be paid? I turn away, fighting back tears. "I'm going to put Arya to bed," I say, my voice trembling. As I rock my daughter to sleep, I feel a sense of despair wash over me. How did I let things get this bad? How did I become so dependent on a man who treats me like a possession? I think of my own mother, who raised me on her own after my father left. She was so strong, so independent. What would she think of me now, trapped in a marriage with a man who doesn't respect me? I kiss Arya's forehead, feeling a fierce surge of love and protectiveness. I can't let her grow up thinking this is normal. I can't let Dominic's poison infect her too. I may be trapped for now, but I won't let him break me. I'll find a way out, no matter what it takes. For Arya's sake and for my own. I'm at my wit's end when I finally meet best friend Scarlett. We've been friends since college, and she's always been there for me, no matter what. I don't know what to do, I confess, my voice breaking. Dominic is controlling every aspect of my life. I feel like I'm suffocating. Scarlett listens patiently, her brow furrowed with concern. "Evelyn, this isn't right," she says gently. "He shouldn't be treating you like this." I nod, wiping away tears. "I know, but I'm scared, Scarlett. He's threatened to take Arya away from me if I try to leave." Scarlett's eyes widen. "He can't do that," she insists. "You're Arya's mother. You have rights." She helps me gather evidence of Dominic's deceit and verbal abuse. We take screenshots of the bank statements, documenting the missing funds. I start keeping a journal, writing down every hurtful thing he says to me. Armed with this information, I confront Dominic. "We need to talk," I say, my voice shaking but determined. He barely looks up from his phone. "Can't it wait? I'm busy." "No, it can't wait," I insist. "Dominic, I know about the money. I know you've been hiding things from me." At this, he finally meets my gaze, his eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about?" I hold up the bank statements. "You've been spending our savings without telling me. Our daughter's college fund. Gone." Dominic scoffs. "Is that what this is about? It's just money, Evelyn. I'll make more." "It's not just about the money," I say, my voice rising. "It's about the lying, the secrets. It's about the way you treat me." He stands up, towering over me. "The way I treat you? I give you everything, Evelyn. A beautiful home, a comfortable life. And this is how you repay me? By snooping through my things and making accusations?" I take a step back, my heart pounding. "I'm not making accusations. I'm telling the truth, and I'm done letting you control me." Dominic's face contorts with rage. You ungrateful bitch, he snarls. If you think you can leave me, think again. I'll make sure you never see Arya again. His words hit me like a slap in the face. You can't do that, I whisper, echoing Scarlett's words. Watch me, he says, his voice cold. I have money, connections. I'll bear you in court. You'll be lucky to get visitation, let alone custody. I feel like I can't breathe. The thought of losing Arya is too much to bear. But then I think of the evidence Scarlett and I have gathered. The bank statements, the journal entries, the recordings of Dominic's threats. I straighten my spine, looking him dead in the eye. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Dominic. I have proof of everything you've done, the lies, the abuse. If you try to take Arya away from me, I'll fight you with everything I have. For a moment, Dominic looks stunned. Then his face twists into an ugly sneer. You think you're so clever, don't you? But you're forgetting one thing. I own you, Evelyn. I own everything, and I'll destroy you before I let you leave me. With that, he storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, my legs shaking. I know this is just the beginning. Dominic won't let me go without a fight, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope. I'm not alone anymore. I have Scarlett, and I have the truth on my side. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my daughter and myself, even if it means going to war with the man I once loved. With Scarlett's help, I begin secretly planning my escape from Dominic's clutches. We meet in quiet coffee shops and secluded parks, always looking over our shoulders for any sign of my husband. You need to start saving money, Scarlett advises. Open a separate bank account, one that Dominic doesn't know about. I nod, jotting down notes in a small, nondescript notebook. I'll start skimming a little bit from the grocery budget each week. He won't notice if I'm careful. Scarlett also helps me document Dominic's abuse. We take photos of the bruises on my arms, the holes he's punched in the walls during his rages. I save every threatening text message, every cruel email. It's during one of these evidence-gathering sessions that I stumble upon a shocking discovery. I'm going through Dominic's email, looking for anything incriminating, when I find a string of messages between him and his secretary, Tessa. At first, I think they're just work-related, but as I read on, my stomach twists with a sickening realization. They're not just colleagues, they're having an affair. I miss you, Tessa writes in one email. Last night was amazing. When can we do it again? Dominic's response is filled with explicit details of their trysts, of the things he wants to do to her. I feel like I'm going to be sick. But even as the betrayal cuts me to the core, I feel a flicker of something else. Hope. If Dominic is cheating on me, that means I have even more leverage against him. I print out the emails with shaking hands, adding them to my growing pile of evidence. Armed with this new information, I finally work up the courage to file for divorce. Scarlett comes with me to the courthouse, holding my hand as I fill out the paperwork. When we return home, Dominic is waiting for us. Where have you been? He demands, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. I take a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. I was filing for divorce, I say, my voice steady. I'm leaving you, Dominic. For a moment, he looks stunned. Then his face contorts with rage. You can't leave me, he snarls. I won't let you. He takes a step towards me, his fists clenched. But before he can lay a hand on me, Scarlett steps between us. Don't you dare touch her, she says, her voice like steel. We have evidence of everything you've done, the abuse, the cheating. If you come near Evelyn or Arya again, we'll go straight to the police. Dominic's eyes widen as he takes in the folder in Scarlett's hand. You're bluffing, he says, but I can hear the uncertainty in his voice. Try me, Scarlett replies, her gaze unwavering. For a long moment, they stare each other down. Then Dominic takes a step back, his face twisting into an ugly sneer. Fine, he spits. You want a divorce? You've got it, but don't think for a second that this is over. I'll make your life a living hell, Evelyn. You'll be begging me to take you back. With that, he storms out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I collapse onto the couch, my legs shaking. Scarlett sits beside me, pulling me into a tight hug. You did it, she whispers. You're free. But even as relief washes over me, I know that this is just the beginning. Dominic won't let me go without a fight. He'll do everything in his power to make me suffer. But for the first time in years, I feel a glimmer of hope. I've taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, my freedom, and I won't let Dominic break me. Not again. Not ever. The divorce proceedings begin, and I steel myself for the battle ahead. Dominic has hired a high-powered attorney, a shark in an expensive suit, but I have Scarlett by my side and a fierce determination to protect my daughter. Our first meeting is tense, with Dominic glaring at me from across the conference room table. His lawyer, a man with slicked-back hair and a predatory smile, leans forward. "Mrs. Hawthorne," he begins, his voice dripping with condescension, "my client is willing to offer you a generous settlement in exchange for your cooperation in keeping this matter private." I feel a flush of anger rising in my cheeks. "Generous?" I repeat, my voice tight. "You mean hush money, to keep me quiet about the abuse, the cheating." Dominic's lawyer smirks. "Let's not throw around accusations, Mrs. Hawthorne. My client denies any wrongdoing." I lean forward, meeting his gaze head-on. "I have proof," I say, my voice steady. "Emails, text messages, photographs. I'm not afraid to use them." For a moment, the lawyer's smug expression falters. Then he recovers, clearing his throat. "Be that as it may, I think we can all agree that a protracted legal battle is in no one's best interests, especially not your daughter's." At the mention of Arya, I feel a stab of fear. Dominic knows she's my weakness, my Achilles heel. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice tight. Dominic leans forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "Joint custody," he says. "And a gag order. You keep your mouth shut about our marriage, and I'll let you see Arya on weekends." I feel like I've been punched in the gut. The thought of being separated from my daughter, of only seeing her a few days a month, is unbearable. But then I think of the alternative, of Arya growing up in a home filled with anger and violence, of learning that love means pain and fear. I take a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "No," I say, my voice ringing with conviction. "I won't agree to that. I want full custody, and I want you out of our lives for good." Dominic's face twists with rage. "You can't do that," he snarls. "I'm her father. I have rights." "You lost those rights the first time you raised a hand to me," I say, my voice shaking with anger. "The first time you chose your own selfish desires over your family." I slide a folder across the table, watching as Dominic's lawyer flips through the pages with a growing look of unease. "This is just the beginning," I say, my voice steady. "If you try to fight me on this, I'll make sure the whole world knows what kind of man you really are." For a long moment, Dominic stares at me, his eyes burning with hatred. Then he turns to his lawyer, muttering something under his breath. The lawyer clears his throat, his expression strained. "Perhaps we should take a break," he suggests. "Reconvene at a later date, when emotions aren't running quite so high." I nod, feeling a rush of triumph. I know this is just the first battle in what will likely be a long and brutal war. But for now, I've won. As I leave the conference room, Scarlett falls into step beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You were amazing in there," she says, her voice filled with pride. "I've never seen you so strong, so fearless." I manage a small smile even as my heart races with adrenaline. "I had to be," I say, "for Arya, for myself." We step out into the bright sunlight, and I take a deep breath of fresh air. It feels like the first time I've been able to breathe freely in years. I know the road ahead will be hard. Dominic won't give up without a fight, and I'll have to be strong, and stronger than I've ever been. But for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I can build a better life for my daughter and myself. A life free from fear, from pain, a life filled with love and laughter and joy. And I'll fight like hell to make that life a reality. The divorce is finalized, and I'm granted full custody of Arya. Dominic is ordered to pay child support and alimony, a fact that leaves him seething with rage. But even as I celebrate my victory, I know that he won't let this go easily. Dominic is a man who hates to lose, who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. I'm proven right just a few days later, when I'm awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of shattering glass. I bolt out of bed, my heart pounding, and race to Arya's room. She's sleeping peacefully, her little face relaxed in slumber. But as I turn to leave, I catch a glimpse of movement outside her window. It's Dominic, his face twisted with fury. He's holding a baseball bat, the shattered remains of the window at his feet. "You think you've won?" he snarls, his voice slurring with drink. "You think you can just take my daughter away from me?" I feel a rush of fear, followed quickly by anger. "Get out of here, Dominic," I say, my voice shaking. "You're violating the restraining order. I'll call the police." He laughs, a harsh, ugly sound. Go ahead, he taunts. Call them. By the time they get here, I'll be long gone, and you'll be left picking up the pieces, just like always. I take a step forward, my fists clenched at my sides. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Dominic. I'm done letting you control me, letting you hurt me. His eyes narrow, and he takes a step closer, the bat raised threateningly. You should be afraid, he growls. I'll make your life a living hell, Evelyn. I'll take Arya away from you, one way or another. But even as he speaks, I feel a sense of calm washing over me. I've spent so long living in fear of this man, letting him dictate my every move, but not anymore. I reach into my pocket, my fingers closing around my phone. I have proof, Dominic, I say, my voice steady. Proof of your abuse, your cheating, your illegal business dealings. If you come near me or Arya again, I'll expose everything. For a moment, he looks stunned. Then his face contorts with rage, and he takes another step forward, the bat raised high. But before he can swing, the sound of sirens fills the air. Red and blue lights flash through the broken window, casting an eerie glow over the room. Dominic freezes, his eyes wide with panic. He looks from me to the window, his grip on the bat slackening. This isn't over, he snarls, backing away. I'll find a way to make you pay, Evelyn. I swear it. With that, he turns and runs, disappearing into the night just as the police cars screech to a halt outside. I sink to the floor, my legs shaking with relief. Arya stirs in her crib, her little face scrunching up in confusion. It's okay, baby, I whisper, gathering her into my arms. Mommy's here. You're safe now. The police take my statement, and I show them the evidence I've gathered against Dominic. They assure me that they'll do everything in their power to keep us safe, to make sure he never comes near us again. But even as I nod and thank them, I know that this is just the beginning. Dominic is a man who doesn't know how to lose, who will stop at nothing to get his revenge. I'll have to be vigilant, always looking over my shoulder, always ready for the next attack. But I'm not alone anymore. I have Scarlett and the support of the law on my side. And most importantly, I have Arya, my beautiful, innocent daughter, who deserves a life free from fear and pain. I'll do whatever it takes to give her that life, to build a future for us that's filled with love and laughter and joy, even if it means facing down the devil himself. 5 years have passed since that fateful night when Dominic shattered our window and threatened to take Arya away from me. In that time, I've worked hard to rebuild my life, to create a safe and happy home for my daughter. I've thrown myself into my career, working my way up the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm. My colleagues admire my tenacity, my ability to think outside the box, and come up with creative solutions to even the toughest challenges. But my greatest achievement is Arya. She's grown into a bright, curious 5-year-old with her father's dark hair and my green eyes. She's the light of my life, the reason I get up every morning and face the world with a smile. We have a little routine, Arya and I. Every morning I make her breakfast and pack her lunch, then walk her to the bus stop for kindergarten. In the evenings we curl up on the couch and read stories together, or have dance parties in the living room. It's a simple life, but it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. One day, as I'm walking Arya to the bus stop, I bump into a familiar face. It's Liam, a single father who lives down the street. I've seen him around the neighborhood, always with his little boy, Max, in tow. Evelyn, right? He says, smiling warmly. I don't think we've officially met. I'm Liam. I shake his hand, feeling a flutter of something in my chest. Nice to meet you, Liam. This is my daughter, Arya. Arya waves shyly, hiding behind my leg. Liam crouches down to her level, his eyes twinkling. Hi there, Arya. I like your backpack. Is that a unicorn? Arya nods, a tiny smile spreading across her face. Yeah, unicorns are my favorite. Liam grins, standing back up. Well, maybe we can all get together for a playdate sometime. Max loves unicorns, too. I find myself nodding, a warm feeling spreading through my chest. That would be great. Here, let me give you my number. As we exchange numbers, I can't help but feel a spark of something. A connection, a sense of possibility. Over the next few weeks, Liam and I start spending more time together. We take the kids to the park, have picnics in the backyard. He's kind and funny and thoughtful, always ready with a joke or a helping hand. And he's an amazing father. I watch him with Max, the way he listens patiently to his son's endless chatter, the way he gets down on the floor to play with him. It's clear that he loves his boy with every fiber of his being. Slowly but surely, I feel myself falling for him, and for the first time in a long time, I allow myself to imagine a future that's not just about survival, but about happiness. But even as I bask in the glow of new love, I can't shake the feeling that Dominic is still out there, waiting for his chance to strike. And I'm right. One evening, as Liam and I are enjoying a quiet dinner while the kids play in the living room, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find Dominic standing there, his face haggard and his eyes wild. "Evelyn," he says, his voice raspy, "I need to talk to you." I feel a rush of fear, followed quickly by anger. "What are you doing here, Dominic? You know you're not supposed to come near me or Arya." He holds up his hands, his expression pleading. I know, but I had to see you. I've lost everything, Evelyn, my job, my money, even Tessa left me. I have nothing left." For a moment, I feel a flicker of pity, but then I remember all the pain he's caused, all the fear and heartache. "I'm sorry, Dominic," I say, my voice firm, "but that's not my problem anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." His face twists with rage, and he takes a step forward. "You did this to me, you bitch. You ruined my life." But before he can say another word, Liam is there, stepping between us. "I think you should leave," he says, his voice calm but firm, "before I call the police." Dominic looks from Liam to me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. But finally he turns and walks away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As I watch him go, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. I know that he'll always be a part of my past, a shadow that I can never fully escape. But I also know that I'm stronger than he is. I've survived his abuse, his manipulation. I've built a life for myself and my daughter, a life filled with love and joy and possibility. And as I turn back to Liam, to the man who has shown me what true love and partnership can be, I know that I'm finally free. Free to live, to love, to be happy. And that's the greatest revenge of all. I stared at Delia's newborn cradled in her arms, an overwhelming sense of disbelief washing over me. My eyes darted between the tiny bundle and the man standing beside her. Greg, my husband of 7 years. "What's going on?" I choked out, unable to process the sight before me. Delia, my supposed best friend since college, looked up at me with an expression I didn't recognize. "Leela, I should have told you sooner," she began, her voice laced with guilt. "Greg and I, we're together. This is our child." The words hit me like a ton of bricks, stealing my breath away. My mind raced back to our carefree days at university, when Delia and I were inseparable. We'd shared every secret, every triumph and heartbreak. How could she betray me like this? Greg shifted uncomfortably, refusing to meet my gaze. "Lila, I'm sorry. It just happened." "It just happened," I echoed, fury rapidly replacing the initial shock. "You've been sleeping with my best friend behind my back, and that's all you have to say?" Delia flinched, clutching the baby closer. "We never meant to hurt you, Lila. Things just got complicated." Complicated didn't begin to cover it. My marriage, my friendships, my entire world, all crumbling before my eyes. I thought back to the past year, Greg's frequent business trips and late nights at the office. The signs were there, but I'd been too blind to see them. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded, my voice trembling with rage. Greg sighed heavily. "About a year. A year. 12 months of lies and deception right under my nose. I felt sick to my stomach. Delia reached out to me, her eyes pleading. "Lila, please try to understand." "Understand?" I cut her off, recoiling from her touch. "How can I possibly understand this? You've betrayed me in the worst way imaginable." Greg stepped forward, his expression a mix of guilt and defiance. "It's not that simple, Lila. Delia and I, we love each other." His words felt like a slap in the face. "Love? You don't know the meaning of the word." I spun on my heel, unable to bear the sight of them any longer. "Don't worry, you won't have to explain yourselves. I'm done." As I stormed out of the hospital room, the weight of their betrayal threatened to crush me. But beneath the pain and anger, a newfound resolve took root. They would pay for this. I would make sure of it. The drive home passed in a blur, a torrent of emotions raging within me. Delia's betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined, her selfish actions shattering the bond we once shared. But it was Greg's deceit that cut me to the core. The man I'd vowed to spend my life with had obliterated that promise without a second thought. As I pulled into the driveway, I steeled myself, forcing a mask of calm over my features. Greg couldn't know the depths of my knowledge, not yet. I needed to play along, to gather the evidence that would bring their twisted game crashing down. The front door swung open, and there he stood, a bemused expression on his face. "Everything okay? You look shaken up." I mustered a tight smile, willing my voice steady. "Yeah, just a long day at the hospital visiting Delia." The lies slipped off my tongue with surprising ease. "You know how exhausting she can be." Greg chuckled, seemingly oblivious to the maelstrom raging within me. "That's our Delia, always one for drama." He pulled me into an embrace, and I fought the urge to recoil from his touch. Over the next few days, I watched him like a hawk, scrutinizing his every move for signs of his deception. The little things I'd once overlooked now glared at me. The lingering scent of an unfamiliar perfume, the furtive glances at his phone, the late nights working. How could I have been so blind? Determined to unravel the truth, I made a call to an old friend, a private investigator I'd known since college. Within hours, he had Greg's movements under surveillance, tracking his comings and goings with meticulous detail. The evidence trickled in slowly at first, receipts for expensive dinners, hotel charges on our joint credit card. But then the floodgates opened and a clearer picture emerged. Delia had been siphoning money from our accounts for months, funneling it into a hidden slush fund. Plane tickets, jewelry, even a down payment on a cozy little bungalow, all purchased with our hard-earned savings, all part of their twisted plan. With each new revelation, my fury burned hotter, an inferno of rage threatening to consume me. But I kept my cool, maintaining the facade of marital bliss while secretly plotting my revenge. Then, one fateful day, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. A copy of a prenatal agreement between Greg and Delia, outlining their intentions to raise the child together, at my expense. I clutched the damning document, my hands trembling. They'd played me for a fool, using my love and trust as weapons against me. But no more. It was time to strike back, to expose their web of lies and make them face the consequences of their actions. As I looked up, my gaze fell on Greg, laughing and chatting with friends like nothing was amiss. A cruel smile tugged at my lips. Oh, how the tables were about to turn. With the prenatal agreement in hand, I finally had the smoking gun I needed. Greg and Delia's deception was laid bare, their treacherous plot exposed in black and white. But the document was just the tip of the iceberg. My investigation had unearthed a trail of lies that ran deeper than I could have imagined. Greg's suspicious behavior only escalated in the following days, his absences growing longer and more frequent. I'd catch him poring over financial statements late into the night, his brow furrowed with worry. Little did he know, I was one step ahead, meticulously cataloging every cent he and Delia had siphoned from our accounts. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled into offshore accounts and untraceable investments. It was clear they'd been planning this for years, methodically bleeding me dry while I remained obliviously in love. Through it all, I maintained my facade of normalcy, playing the doting wife while quietly gathering the arsenal that would bring them to their knees. But even as the evidence mounted, a part of me still struggled to comprehend the depths of their betrayal. How could Delia, my oldest friend, the woman who'd once sworn to be my maid of honor, do this to me? We'd shared everything, from our deepest secrets to our wildest dreams. Yet she'd cast it all aside without a second thought, seduced by the promise of wealth and a twisted sense of entitlement. And Greg? The man I'd vowed to love and cherish, the father I'd hoped to raise children with. His lies cut deepest of all, a vile violation of the sacred trust between husband and wife. I'd given him everything, and he'd repaid me with deceit and betrayal. As the days ticked by, my resentment festered, fueled by each new revelation. I pored over the evidence, committing every sordid detail to memory. The fake business trips, the clandestine rendezvous, the countless nights they'd lain together while I remained blissfully unaware. Through it all, I remained an island of calm on the surface, even as a storm of rage raged within me. Greg grew increasingly distant, his guilt and paranoia driving a wedge between us. But I played along, biding my time until the perfect moment to strike. That moment came in the form of a family gathering, a celebration of my sister-in-law's promotion at work. It was the ideal stage, a chance to expose their duplicity before the very people they'd hoped to deceive. As the invitations went out, I couldn't help but smile at the delicious irony. They thought they were attending a joyous occasion, blissfully unaware that it would be the scene of their downfall. Little did they know, the game was up, and I held all the cards. With each passing day, my anticipation grew, a heady mix of dread and exhilaration coursing through my veins. Soon they would face the consequences of their actions, their lies laid bare before the world, and I would be the one to deliver the final, crushing blow. As the days ticked down to the fateful family gathering, I found an unexpected ally in my quest for retribution. Greg's own sister, Jenna. It turned out she'd harbored suspicions about her brother's fidelity for years, her intuition picking up on the subtle signs I'd been too naive to see. "I always knew there was something off about him," she confided in me over coffee one afternoon. "The late nights, the shady business deals, it all reeked of a man with something to hide." I nodded grimly, sliding the damning prenatal agreement across the table. Jenna's eyes widened as she scanned the document, her expression morphing from shock to fury. "That bastard," she hissed, slamming her fist on the table. "How could he do this to you, Lila? To our family?" In that moment, I saw a kindred spirit in Jenna, a woman wronged by the same man, her trust betrayed by blood. Without hesitation, I laid out the full scope of Greg and Delia's deception, every sordid detail I'd uncovered through my investigation. Jenna listened in stunned silence, her anger growing with each revelation. By the time I finished, she was trembling with rage, her knuckles white from gripping the table's edge. "We have to make them pay," she growled, her eyes blazing with determination. "They can't be allowed to get away with this." I nodded, a grim smile tugging at my lips. "That's exactly what I intend to do." Over the next few days, Jenna and I became co-conspirators, meticulously plotting our revenge. We pored over the evidence, strategizing the perfect moment and method to expose Greg and Delia's duplicity. "The family gathering is our best shot," Jenna mused, tapping her pen against the stack of incriminating documents. "We can't let them wriggle out of this one." "Agreed," I replied, my voice steely with resolve. "They need to face the consequences of their actions in front of everyone they've betrayed." As the event drew nearer, our plans solidified. We would let Greg and Delia bask in the illusion of normalcy, lulling them into a false sense of security. Then, at the height of the celebration, we would drop our bombshell, unleashing the full weight of their deception before the entire family. "They'll have nowhere to run," Jenna murmured, a predatory glint in her eye. "No more lies, no more secrets, just the ugly truth laid bare for all to see." With each passing day, my anticipation grew, fueled by the knowledge that retribution was finally within reach. Greg and Delia had made a grave mistake in underestimating me, and their arrogance would be their undoing. As the hours ticked down, I found myself dwelling on Delia's betrayal, the sting of her deceit cutting deeper than I could have imagined. We'd been more than friends. We'd been sisters, bound by an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of youth. Yet she'd cast it all aside without a second thought, seduced by the promise of wealth and a twisted sense of entitlement. Her actions spoke of a darkness within, a bottomless well of greed and manipulation that knew no bounds. With each new revelation about her past misdeeds, my disgust grew. The friendships she'd sabotaged, the lives she'd callously upended in pursuit of her own desires. She was a viper in human skin, striking without remorse or regret. But soon her venomous ways would be laid bare, her toxic influence forever purged from my life. Jenna and I would see to that, our righteous fury burning hotter with every treacherous detail we uncovered. As the appointed day dawned, a sense of grim determination settled over me. It was time to stop playing the victim and take control of my own destiny. Greg and Delia had made their bed, and now they would lie in it, their web of lies unraveled before the very people they'd sought to deceive. No more games, no more deception. Only the cold, hard truth and the consequences they so richly deserved. The days leading up to the family gathering were a flurry of activity as Jenna and I meticulously prepared for our grand reveal. Every detail had to be perfect, from the staging of the evidence to the timing of our dramatic entrance. "We can't leave anything to chance," Jenna muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration as she arranged the damning documents in a precise order. One misstep, and they'll try to wriggle their way out of this mess. I nodded grimly, my jaw set with determination. They won't get that chance. We'll have them dead to rights, with nowhere to run. As the appointed day drew nearer, a strange dichotomy took hold within me. On the surface, I maintained a facade of normalcy, going about my daily routine as if nothing were amiss. But beneath that veneer, a storm of emotions raged. Anger, betrayal, and a burning desire for justice. Greg remained oblivious to the gathering storm, his guilt and paranoia driving him deeper into a spiral of deception. I watched him with a mixture of pity and disgust, marveling at the depths to which he had sunk. "How could you do this to me, Greg?" I asked one night, my voice laced with venom. "To our family?" He froze, his eyes wide with fear and guilt. For a moment, I thought he might finally come clean, to confess his sins and beg for forgiveness. But then, like a cornered animal, he lashed out, his words dripping with vitriol. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he spat, his fists clenched at his sides. "You think you're so innocent, but you're just as guilty as the rest of us." His words stung, but I refused to let him see my pain. Instead, I met his gaze with a steely resolve, my voice low and dangerous. "Keep telling yourself that, Greg. But know this, the truth always comes out in the end, no matter how hard you try to bury it." As the days ticked down, the tension in our household became palpable, a thick fog of mistrust and resentment that hung heavy in the air. Greg grew increasingly distant, his guilt driving a wedge between us that seemed insurmountable. But through it all, Jenna and I remained steadfast, our resolve hardening with each passing hour. We were warriors on a mission, armed with the weapons of truth and justice, and nothing would deter us from our path. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived, and we put the final touches on our plan. The stage was set, the evidence meticulously arranged, and the guest list carefully curated to ensure maximum impact. As the guests began to arrive, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of excitement mingled with trepidation. This was it. The moment we'd been building towards, the culmination of weeks of planning and preparation. Greg and Delia arrived fashionably late, as always, their smug expressions a clear indication that they had no idea what was in store for them. As they mingled with the crowd, exchanging pleasantries and basking in the illusion of normalcy, I caught Jenna's eye from across the room. She gave me a subtle nod, her expression grim and determined. It was time. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, the weight of the evidence heavy in my hands. All eyes turned towards me, a hush falling over the room as I cleared my throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady and unwavering. "But I'm afraid this isn't the celebration you were led to believe." Greg's brow furrowed in confusion, but before he could speak, I pressed on. "No, this is something far more important, a reckoning, if you will. This is a chance to shed light on the lies and deception that have been festering in our midst for far too long." Jenna stepped forward, her expression steely as she brandished the stack of documents. "Greg and Delia, you have been caught red-handed," she announced, her voice ringing out in the stunned silence. "Your betrayal, your greed, your utter disregard for the people who loved you. It all ends here today." As the truth began to unfold, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Heads turned, eyes widened in shock and disbelief. But I pressed on, unflinching, laying bare every sordid detail of their duplicity. The stolen money, the secret rendezvous, the twisted prenatal agreement. Nothing was left uncovered, no stone unturned in our pursuit of justice. With each new revelation, Greg and Delia's faces drained of color, their smug expressions replaced by ones of abject horror. And when it was over, when the last damning piece of evidence had been presented, a deafening silence hung in the air. All eyes turned towards the disgraced couple, their guilt laid bare for all to see. In that moment, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me, a righteous fury that burned brighter than any flame. They had made their choices, and now they would face the consequences, the scorn and condemnation of the very people they had sought to deceive. As Greg opened his mouth to speak, to offer some feeble excuse or desperate plea for forgiveness, I held up my hand, silencing him with a single defiant gesture. "Save your breath," I said, my voice laced with icy contempt. "The time for lies is over, You've dug your graves, and now you'll lie in them." With that, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving them to face the music they had so richly earned. The game was over, the battle won, and justice, at long last, had been served. The moment the truth spilled forth, a hush descended over the room, the weight of Greg and Delia's betrayal hanging heavy in the air. Stunned faces turned towards the disgraced couple, eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Greg was the first to break the silence, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and desperation. "Leila, you can't be serious. This is all just a big misunderstanding." I fixed him with a withering glare, my voice dripping with contempt. "Save it, Greg. The evidence speaks for itself. Your lies, your deceit, your utter disregard for me and our family. It's all right here, laid bare for everyone to see." Delia stepped forward, her face contorted with a mixture of fear and defiance. "You're making a huge mistake, Lila," she hissed, her eyes narrowed to slits. "Greg and I love each other. We were going to come clean, to start a new life together." A bitter laugh escaped my lips as I shook my head in disbelief. "Is that what you tell yourself at night, Delia? That this was all some grand love affair, some romantic notion of destiny?" I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. "Let me clear the air for you. This was nothing more than a calculated scheme, a vile plot to bleed me dry and leave me with nothing. And the worst part? You used our friendship, our bond, as a weapon against me." Jenna stepped forward, her expression one of barely contained fury as she brandished a sheaf of documents. "Don't even try to deny it, you two. We have it all right here. The money trails, the secret accounts, the twisted prenatal agreement." As she began to recite the sordid details of their deception, Greg and Delia's faces paled, the realization of their exposure setting in. Murmurs of outrage rippled through the crowd, hands flying to cover gasps of shock and horror. "You see?" I said, my voice ringing out over the din. "This was never about love or destiny or any of that fairy tale garbage. It was about greed, pure and simple, a despicable act of betrayal perpetrated by two people who claimed to care about me." Greg opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Don't bother with excuses or apologies, Greg. They'll fall on deaf ears. You made your bed, and now you get to lie in it." Turning to face the stunned guests, I took a deep, steadying breath. I know this is a lot to take in, believe me, but the truth had to come out, no matter how ugly or painful it might be. Greg and Delia have been living a lie, spinning a web of deception that ensnared us all. "But no more," Jenna chimed in, her voice resolute. "Their games end here, their lies exposed for all to see. It's time for them to face the consequences of their actions." As the weight of our words sank in, a palpable shift occurred in the room. The initial shock and disbelief gave way to outrage, fingers pointed and voices raised in condemnation. Greg and Delia shrank back, their facade of confidence crumbling in the face of such overwhelming censure. But just when I thought their humiliation was complete, one final twist emerged, a revelation that not even I could have anticipated. "You know, Lila," Delia said, her voice laced with a newfound bravado, "you're only seeing part of the picture here." My brow furrowed as I regarded her warily. "What are you talking about?" A cruel smile twisted her lips as she beckoned Greg closer. "Go on, darling. Tell them the real reason you got involved with me in the first place." Greg hesitated, his eyes darting around the room, before finally letting out a defeated sigh. "The truth is, Delia never really loved me. This was all just a long con, a way for her to get her hands on our money." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as the full weight of his words sank in. Delia, emboldened by Greg's confession, tossed her head back and laughed, a cold, mocking sound that sent chills down my spine. "That's right," she crowed, her eyes glittering with malice. "Greg was just a means to an end, a useful idiot to be bled dry until there was nothing left. And once I had what I wanted, I was going to leave his sorry ass in the dust." The room erupted in a cacophony of outrage, voices raised in a clamor of fury and condemnation. But through it all, Delia remained unrepentant, her expression one of smug satisfaction. As for Greg, he simply hung his head in shame, the full weight of his betrayal and stupidity crashing down upon him. In that moment, I felt a fleeting pang of pity for the man I had once loved, a weak, pathetic creature who had allowed himself to be so thoroughly manipulated and deceived. But that pity was quickly overshadowed by a sense of grim vindication. Delia's true nature had been laid bare for all to see, her veneer of charm and innocence stripped away to reveal the cold, calculating monster beneath. As the chaos swirled around us, I caught Jenna's eye, a silent understanding passing between us. Our mission had been accomplished, and then some. Not only had we exposed Greg and Delia's lies, but we had uncovered an even deeper layer of depravity. With a small nod, we turned and walked away, leaving the disgraced pair to face the music they had so richly earned. The battle was won, the truth laid bare, and in the end, justice had prevailed. In the aftermath of the explosive revelation, a deafening silence descended over the room, broken only by the occasional murmur of disbelief or outraged whisper. All eyes were fixed on Greg and Delia, the once smug couple reduced to cowering, disgraced shells of their former selves. I stepped forward, my voice ringing out loud and clear. Well, there you have it, folks, the truth in all its ugly glory. Greg and Delia, the lying, cheating, manipulative scum who thought they could play us all for fools. Delia opened her mouth, no doubt to spew forth another torrent of excuses or justifications, but I silenced her with a sharp gesture. Save your breath, Delia. Your words are as hollow and meaningless as your supposed love for Greg. You've been exposed for the vile, greedy snake that you truly are. Greg flinched as if struck, his face a mask of shame and regret. Lila, please. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was just lost. Weak. Delia took advantage of me, preyed on my vulnerabilities. A bitter laugh escaped my lips as I shook my head in disgust. Don't even try to play the victim card, Greg. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences. Turning to face the stunned guests, I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was to come. Friends, family, I know this is a lot to take in. Believe me, I understand the shock, the outrage, the sense of betrayal you're all feeling right now. But this is the reality we face. Two people we trusted, two people we loved, have revealed themselves to be nothing more than manipulative, selfish liars. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, punctuated by nods and muttered curses directed at the disgraced pair. And now, it falls to us to decide what comes next. Do we forgive them, turn a blind eye to their transgressions, and allow them to slink back into our lives, our trust forever shattered? Or do we stand tall, united in our resolve to see justice done? I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in before continuing. As for me, the choice is clear. Greg, you are no longer my husband, not in any way that matters. Our marriage, our vows, our entire life together, it was all built on a foundation of lies and deception, and I will not abide by that any longer. Greg opened his mouth to protest, but I silenced him with a withering glare. No, Greg, you don't get to speak, not anymore. Your words have lost all meaning, all power over me. From this day forward, I am severing all ties with you, legal, financial, emotional. You are dead to me, a ghost from a past I'm ready to leave behind. Turning to Delia, I felt a fresh wave of fury wash over me, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. And you vile manipulative serpent, you wormed your way into my life, exploited my trust and friendship for your own twisted gain. You are the embodiment of everything I despise, greed, selfishness, utter disregard for the harm you cause others. Delia recoiled as if struck, her eyes wide with fear and indignation, but I pressed on, undeterred. Mark my words, Delia, I will see you pay for what you've done. Every cent you've stolen, every life you've ruined in your quest for wealth and power, it will all come crashing down around you. The legal system may be blind, but I will make sure it sees the truth, the full extent of your depravity. A hush fell over the room as the gravity of my words sank in. Greg and Delia stood frozen, their faces pale and drawn, the weight of their sins finally bearing down upon them. So you see, there is no forgiveness here, no second chances. You've made your beds, and now you get to lie in them, surrounded by the wreckage of your lies and betrayals. With a final, contemptuous glance at the disgraced pair, I turned and walked away, my head held high. The battle was over, the war won. And in the end, justice would be served, no matter the cost. The fallout from the grand revelation was swift and uncompromising. Within days, the divorce papers had been filed, my lawyers moving with ruthless efficiency to extricate me from the cesspool of lies that had been my marriage to Greg. He won't know what hit him, my attorney assured me, a predatory glint in her eye as she outlined the legal onslaught we had planned. We're going to bleed him dry, just like he and that snake Delia tried to do to you." I nodded, my jaw set with grim determination. Good. I want him ruined, financially, socially, in every way imaginable. He doesn't get to walk away from this unscathed. True to her word, my legal team went for the jugular, meticulously documenting every cent Greg and Delia had siphoned from our accounts, every asset they'd acquired through their web of deceit. The paper trail was damning, a laundry list of fraud and financial malfeasance that would make even the most hardened criminal blush. As the case gained momentum, more and more of Delia's past misdeeds came to light, a veritable trail of broken friendships, ruined lives, and shattered trust in her wake. It seemed she'd been running her long con for years, preying on the naive and vulnerable with a ruthless, single-minded focus. With each new revelation, my disgust for the woman I'd once called my best friend deepened. How could I have been so blind, so utterly taken in by her lies and manipulations? The signs had all been there, but I'd chosen to ignore them, blinded by my own desperate desire to believe in the sanctity of our friendship. But no more. The scales had fallen from my eyes, and I saw Delia for the vile, heartless creature she truly was. And as the lawsuits and criminal charges piled up against her, I felt a savage sense of satisfaction, knowing that her reign of terror was finally coming to an end. Greg, for his part, tried every trick in the book to wriggle out of the legal noose tightening around his neck. He begged, he pleaded, he even tried to shift the blame onto Delia, painting himself as the helpless victim of her machinations. "You have to believe me, Leela," he implored during one particularly heated courtroom confrontation. "I was just a pawn in her game, a means to an end. I never meant to hurt you like this." I fixed him with a withering glare, my voice laced with icy contempt. "Save your breath, Greg. Your lies and excuses mean nothing to me now. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." As the legal battles raged on, my life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy. The cloud of deception and betrayal that had hung over me for so long was finally starting to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of clarity and purpose. I threw myself into my work, pouring all my pain and anger into my writing. The words flowed like never before, each sentence a cathartic release, a purging of the toxicity that had plagued me for far too long. And as the dust settled and the legal battles reached their inevitable conclusion, I found myself standing triumphant amidst the wreckage of Greg and Delia's lies. They had been well and truly vanquished, their ill-gotten gains stripped away, their reputations in tatters. Greg was a shell of his former self, his once charming veneer stripped away to reveal the weak, cowardly man beneath. Delia, too, had been brought low, her arrogance and swagger replaced by the haunted look of a woman who had finally been made to face the consequences of her actions. As for me, I stood tall and unbroken, my resolve tempered by the fires of adversity. The pain and betrayal I had endured would forever leave their scars, but they had also made me stronger, more resilient than I ever could have imagined. With the legal battles behind me and my financial future secure, I turned my attention to the next chapter of my life. The world was my oyster, a blank canvas upon which I could paint the vibrant hues of my own destiny. I quit my job, said goodbye to the stifling confines of the office, and embarked on a new path, one of self-discovery, growth, and the pursuit of my true passions. I traveled, I explored, I immersed myself in the rich tapestry of life that had been denied to me for far too long. And through it all, I found myself surrounded by a newfound sense of freedom and joy, unburdened by the weight of lies and betrayal that had once threatened to crush me. My friends and family rallied around me, their love and support a constant reminder that true strength lies not in weathering the storm alone, but in embracing the unbreakable bonds of those who truly care. As I stood on the precipice of this new beginning, I couldn't help but reflect on the long, arduous journey that had brought me to this point. The pain, the heartbreak, the searing betrayal, it had all been a crucible, a test of my mettle and my resolve. And in the end, I had emerged victorious, tempered by the fires of adversity, but never consumed by them. Greg and Delia's lies had once threatened to break me, but instead they had forged me into something stronger, something unbreakable. With a contented smile, I turned my face towards the rising sun, basking in the warmth of a new day, a new life. The shadows of the past had been banished, and the future stretched out before me, ripe with boundless possibility. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was truly free. Free to chase my dreams, to embrace my passions, and to forge my own destiny on my own terms. The game was over, the battle won, and the spoils belonged to me alone. Babe, I've been thinking about going back to school once Mila starts kindergarten. I couldn't contain my excitement as I shared my dream with Ethan over dinner. His fork paused midway to his mouth, and he raised an eyebrow. Really? And who's going to take care of Mila and the house while you're off playing student? His condescending tone cut through me like a knife. I thought we could work together to make it happen. You know how much this means to me. I tried to keep my voice steady, but the disappointment was palpable. Ethan scoffed. Come on, Zara. You're a wife and mother now. It's time to grow up and focus on your real responsibilities. He resumed eating, dismissing my aspirations with a wave of his hand. Anger bubbled up inside me. Real responsibilities? Like supporting my husband's career while putting my own dreams on hold? I pushed my plate away, appetite vanishing. Ethan's eyes narrowed. I provide for this family. The least you can do is be grateful and take care of things at home. Grateful? I laughed bitterly. For what? For being treated like a servant in my own home? Mila, sensing the tension, whimpered softly. I reached over to soothe her, but Ethan's voice stopped me cold. Don't coddle her. She needs to learn that life isn't always fair. I stared at him in disbelief. She's 4, Ethan. She needs love and support, not life lessons from a man who can't even appreciate his own wife. Ethan slammed his fist on the table, causing Mila to jump. Watch your mouth, Zara. You're treading on thin ice. I stood up abruptly, scooping Mila into my arms. I'm done with this conversation, and I'm done letting you control my life. I stormed out of the room, fighting back tears as Mila clung to me. Over the next few weeks, the tension in our home was palpable. Ethan's work trips became more frequent, leaving me alone to care for Mila and manage the household. I poured my frustrations into researching master's programs, determined to pursue my education despite Ethan's objections. One afternoon, while organizing Ethan's home office, I stumbled upon a hidden folder tucked away in his desk drawer. My hands trembled as I flipped it open, revealing divorce papers and intimate photos of Ethan with a younger woman. The world around me spun as the realization of his betrayal sank in. Rage consumed me, burning away the last shreds of love and respect I had for my husband. How could he do this to me, to our family? I clutched the evidence to my chest, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I made a vow to myself. I would expose Ethan's true colors and make him pay for his deceit. As I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by the remnants of our shattered marriage, a fierce determination took hold of me. I would no longer be the naive, submissive wife. It was time to take control of my life and secure a better future for Mila and myself, even if it meant destroying the man I once loved. With trembling hands, I tucked the incriminating evidence back into the folder, my mind reeling from the discovery of Ethan's betrayal. I knew I had to act quickly, but I needed more information. I couldn't confront him without a solid plan in place. I called my best friend Lila and poured out my heart to her. She listened patiently, her voice filled with a mix of anger and concern. Zara, you need to protect yourself and Mila. You can't let him get away with this. I know, I sighed, but I don't even know where to start. I feel so lost. Lila's voice turned determined. I have a friend who's a private investigator. He's discreet and thorough. I'll set up a meeting for you. 2 days later, I found myself sitting across from Jack, a seasoned PI with a no-nonsense demeanor. I handed him the folder, my voice shaking as I explained my situation. He leafed through the contents, his expression grim. I'll dig into this Jade character and see what I can find. In the meantime, I suggest you start gathering more evidence. The more ammunition you have, the better. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. I have an idea. I'll need your help to execute it. That evening, while Ethan was on another work trip, I carefully planted a hidden camera in his office. It was a risk, but I needed concrete proof of his affair and any other illegal activities. Days turned into weeks as I waited for Jack's report, the camera silently recording Ethan's every move. When Jack finally called, His voice was filled with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. Zara, I've got what you need. Ethan's been embezzling company funds to finance his little getaways with Jade, and I've got video evidence of them in his office, discussing their plans to run away together. My heart raced as I processed the information. Send me everything you have. It's time to confront him. Ethan returned home that evening, his demeanor cold and distant. I waited until Mila was asleep before I approached him in his office. He looked up from his laptop. Annoyance etched on his face. What do you want, Zara? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. I know about Jade, Ethan, and I know about the money you've been stealing from your company. His eyes widened, then narrowed in anger. You've been spying on me? How dare you? I held up my phone, the video of him and Jade playing silently on the screen. I have all the evidence I need. Did you really think you could get away with this? Ethan's face contorted with rage. He stood up abruptly, his chair crashing to the floor. You stupid bitch! You have no idea what you're messing with! He lunged at me, his hands reaching for my throat. I stumbled backward, my back slamming against the wall. Mila, awakened by the commotion, appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. Mommy? Ethan froze, his grip loosening. I pushed him away, gasping for air. Mila ran to me, tears streaming down her face. I hate you, Daddy! You hurt Mommy. Ethan stared at us, his expression a mix of shock and shame. Without a word, he turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I held Mila close, my own tears falling freely. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. I won't let him hurt us anymore. As I comforted my daughter, a fierce determination filled my heart. Ethan had shown his true colors, and now it was time to make him pay for his sins. I would use every piece of evidence I had to destroy him, just as he had destroyed our family. In the days following the confrontation, Ethan became increasingly distant and cold towards Mila and me. He spent long hours locked away in his office, only emerging for brief, tense meals. I knew he was planning his next move, and I had to stay one step ahead. I met with Lila at a quiet cafe, the weight of my secret hanging heavy between us. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand in support. How are you holding up, Zara? I shook my head, exhaustion etched on my face. I'm barely keeping it together, Lila. I feel like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for Ethan to strike. Lila's eyes narrowed. You need to keep gathering evidence. The more you have, the stronger your case will be. I nodded, pulling out my phone. I've been recording his phone conversations with Jade. Listen to this. I pressed play, and Jade's voice filled the air, dripping with disdain. When are you going to leave that pathetic excuse for a wife, Ethan? We could be so happy together without her dragging us down. Ethan's reply was muffled, but the intent was clear. Soon, baby. I just need to make sure she doesn't get a penny in the divorce. She doesn't deserve anything. Lila's face contorted with disgust. What a snake. You need to take him down, Zara. Hard. I tucked my phone away, a plan forming in my mind. I know exactly what I'm going to do, but I need you to promise me something, Lila. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Anything. If something happens to me, I need you to take care of Mila. Make sure she knows how much I love her. Lila's eyes widened. Zara, don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen to you. I smiled sadly. I hope you're right, but I have to be prepared for anything. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my revenge plan. I compiled a dossier of evidence against Ethan, from the hidden camera footage to the recordings of his conversations with Jade. I met with a lawyer who assured me that I had a strong case for full custody of Mila and a generous settlement. But I knew Ethan wouldn't go down without a fight. He started staying out late, coming home reeking of alcohol and perfume. He barely acknowledged Mila's presence, brushing past her as if she were a ghost. One night I confronted him as he stumbled through the door, his eyes bloodshot and his shirt askew. Where have you been, Ethan? He sneered at me, his words slurring together. None of your damn business, Zara. I don't answer to you. I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. You answer to your daughter, though. Or have you forgotten about her? Ethan's face twisted with rage. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. Don't you dare use Mila against me. You're the one who's tearing this family apart with your ridiculous fantasies of going back to school. I wrenched my arm away, my eyes blazing. No, Ethan. You're the one who tore this family apart the moment you decided to cheat on me with your assistant. He stared at me, his mouth agape. How did you? I smiled coldly. I know everything, Ethan, and soon everyone else will too. I turned to walk away, but Ethan's voice stopped me. You'll regret this, Zara. I'll make sure you never see Mila again. I looked back over my shoulder, my voice steady. You can try, Ethan, but I've got the truth on my side, and the truth always comes out in the end. As I walked away, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I was ready to fight for my daughter and my future. Ethan had underestimated me for the last time. The tension in our home had reached a boiling point. Ethan's anger simmered just beneath the surface, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. I walked on eggshells, trying to shield Mila from the worst of it, but I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came to a head. It happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. Ethan had been gone for days, claiming he was on a business trip. But I knew better. I had seen the charges on our credit card statement: expensive dinners, luxury hotels, and even a pair of diamond earrings that certainly weren't meant for me. When he finally walked through the door, I was waiting for him in the living room, Mila playing quietly at my feet. He barely glanced at us as he shrugged off his coat and tossed his keys on the table. We need to talk, Ethan, I said, my voice steady despite the fear churning in my gut. He looked at me then, his eyes cold and hard. I don't have time for your nagging, Zara. I've had a long day. I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. I'm sure you have. Busy spending our money on your mistress, were you? Ethan's face twisted with rage. He took a step towards me, his voice low and menacing. You don't know what you're talking about, Zara. I suggest you drop it. But I couldn't drop it. Not anymore. I know everything, Ethan. The affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Did you really think you could keep it hidden forever? He lunged at me then, his hands wrapping around my throat. I gasped for air, my eyes wide with terror. Mila screamed, her little voice piercing the air. Daddy, stop! You're hurting Mommy. Ethan froze, his grip loosening. He stared at Mila, his face a mask of shock and shame. I pushed him away, coughing and sputtering as I tried to catch my breath. Mila ran to me, her arms wrapping around my legs. I hate you, Daddy, she sobbed, her face buried in my skirt. You're a bad man. Ethan stared at us, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Finally, he turned and stumbled out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sank to the floor, gathering Mila in my arms. We cried together, our tears mingling on my shirt. I stroked her hair, whispering soothing words in her ear. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. I won't let him hurt us anymore. But even as I said the words, I knew they were a lie. Ethan had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. I had to get Mila and myself out of this toxic situation before it was too late. The next few days were a blur of activity. I met with my lawyer, who helped me file for a restraining order against Ethan. I packed our bags, taking only the essentials. Mila clung to me, her eyes wide and fearful. Where are we going, Mommy? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. I kissed her forehead, trying to project a sense of calm I didn't feel. We're going on a little adventure, baby. Just you and me. Won't that be fun? She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She was too young to understand the gravity of the situation, but she knew something was wrong. As we drove away from the only home Mila had ever known, I felt a sense of both relief and dread. I knew I was doing the right thing, but I also knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. Ethan wouldn't let us go without a fight, and I had to be prepared for anything. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, and the truth, as painful as it might be, would set us free in the end. Mila and I settled into our new life at the secret rental home, but the peace was short-lived. Ethan's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his anger and desperation palpable even from a distance. He bombarded me with phone calls and texts, alternating between pleading for forgiveness and hurling vicious insults. I did my best to shield Mila from the worst of it, but she could sense the tension in the air. She clung to me like a lifeline, her little face etched with worry. When can we go home, Mommy? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. I hugged her close, my heart breaking at the thought of all she had endured. This is our home now, baby. We're going to make a fresh start, just you and me. But even as I said the words, I knew that Ethan wouldn't let us go that easily. He was a man used to getting what he wanted, and he viewed Mila and me as his possessions, to be controlled and manipulated at will. I threw myself into gathering evidence against him, determined to build an airtight case. I spent long hours poring over financial records and phone logs, piecing together the puzzle of his deceit. Late one night, as Mila slept peacefully in her bed, I stumbled upon a goldmine of information. Ethan had been sloppy, leaving a trail of incriminating emails and text messages between himself and Jade. They spoke openly of their plans to flee the country together, using the embezzled funds to start a new life. My blood boiled as I read Jade's words, dripping with contempt for me and Mila. "I can't wait to be rid of that pathetic excuse for a wife," she wrote. "And as for the kid, we can always ship her off to boarding school. Out of sight, out of mind." I printed out the messages with shaking hands, my vision blurring with tears of rage. How could Ethan be so callous, so willing to abandon his own child? And Jade, what kind of woman could be so heartless, so eager to destroy a family for her own selfish gain? I added the printouts to my growing dossier of evidence, a sense of grim satisfaction filling me. Ethan thought he was untouchable, but he had no idea what I was capable of. I would make him pay for his sins, even if it meant burning down the life we had built together. The next day, I met with Jack, the private investigator who had been working tirelessly on my behalf. He greeted me with a smile, his eyes twinkling with anticipation. "I think we've got him, Zara," he said, handing me a thick folder. "This should be more than enough to nail the bastard to the wall." I flipped through the pages, my heart racing as I took in the damning evidence. Bank statements, surveillance photos, witness statements, it was all there, laid out in black and white. Ethan's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and I held the sledgehammer that would bring it all crashing down. I looked up at Jack, my eyes shining with determination. "It's time," I said, my voice steady and strong. "Let's take this son of a bitch down." Jack nodded, his face serious. "I'll start making the necessary arrangements. You just focus on keeping yourself and Mila safe. This is going to get ugly before it gets better." I knew he was right. Ethan wouldn't go down without a fight, and I had to be prepared for anything. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, and the love of my daughter to keep me strong. As I left Jack's office, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan had underestimated me for the last time, and now he would pay the price for his betrayal. The day had finally arrived. Ethan was set to leave for another one of his work trips, but this time I knew exactly where he was going. He and Jade had planned a romantic getaway, a chance to flaunt their illicit love in the face of everything Ethan had once held dear. I watched from the window as he loaded his suitcase into the trunk of his car, whistling a jaunty tune. He had no idea what was about to hit him, no inkling of the storm that was brewing on the horizon. As soon as he pulled out of the driveway, I sprang into action. Mila and I had been living out of suitcases for weeks, our belongings carefully packed and hidden away. Now it was time to put our plan into motion. We loaded our bags into my car, Mila chattering excitedly about our adventure. She had no idea the gravity of the situation, no understanding of the betrayal that had led us to this moment. All she knew was that we were going somewhere new, somewhere far away from the pain and heartache of the past few months. As we drove away from the house that had once been our home, I felt a sense of both sadness and relief. I was leaving behind everything I had ever known, but I was also breaking free from the chains that had held me down for so long. We arrived at our secret rental home just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Mila ran inside, eager to explore our new surroundings. I followed more slowly, my heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. I unpacked our belongings with a sense of finality, knowing that there was no turning back now. I placed the divorce papers and the evidence of Ethan's crimes on the kitchen table, a silent testament to the truth that had been hidden for so long. And then I waited. I knew it wouldn't be long before Ethan discovered our absence, before he realized that his carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. The phone rang just as I was putting Mila to bed, her little face peaceful in the soft glow of the nightlight. I answered it with a sense of calm, my voice steady and strong. "Zara, where the hell are you?" Ethan's voice was frantic, tinged with anger and fear. "I came home and everything was gone. What have you done?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I've done what I had to do, Ethan. I've taken Mila and left. I know everything, the affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Did you really think you could keep it hidden forever?" There was a long pause, and then Ethan's voice came back, low and menacing. "You have no idea what you've done, Zara. I'll find you, and I'll make you pay for this. You and Mila belong to me, and I won't let you go without a fight." I laughed then, a harsh, bitter sound. "You're wrong, Ethan. Mila and I don't belong to anyone, least of all you. You've lost everything, and it's all your own doing. The divorce papers are waiting for you, along with all the evidence of your crimes. It's over, Ethan. You've lost." I hung up the phone before he could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline. I knew that the battle was far from over, that Ethan would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, and the love of my daughter to keep me strong. I checked on Mila one last time before heading to bed myself, my mind whirling with the events of the day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new obstacles to overcome. But for now, I could rest easy, knowing that I had taken the first step towards a brighter future, a future free from the lies and betrayal of the past. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had engulfed my life. I woke early, my mind racing with the tasks that lay ahead. I had one more piece of the puzzle to put in place before I could truly break free from Ethan's grasp. I dressed quickly, leaving Mila in the care of my trusted friend and neighbor. She had been a lifeline throughout this ordeal, offering support and guidance when I needed it most. I knew that Mila would be safe with her, protected from the storm that was about to break. I drove to Ethan's parents' house with a sense of trepidation, my heart pounding in my chest. I had never been close with his family, but I knew that they needed to know the truth about their son. They deserved to know the man he had become, the monster that lurked beneath the surface. I rang the doorbell with shaking hands, my breath catching in my throat as Ethan's mother answered the door. She looked at me with surprise, her eyes widening as she took in my haggard appearance. "Zara, what are you doing here? Is everything all right?" I shook my head, my voice trembling as I spoke. "No, everything is not all right. I need to talk to you and your husband. It's about Ethan." She ushered me inside, her face etched with concern. Ethan's father was sitting in the living room reading the newspaper. He looked up as I entered, his brow furrowing in confusion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. And then I began to speak. I told them everything, the affair, the embezzlement, the abuse. I showed them the evidence I had gathered, the proof of their son's betrayal. They listened in stunned silence, their faces growing paler with each passing moment. When I finished, Ethan's mother was openly weeping, her shoulders shaking with the force of her sobs. "I'm so sorry, Zara," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "We had no idea. We thought he was happy with you and Mila. We never imagined he could do something like this." Ethan's father stood up, his face hard with anger. "He's no son of mine," he said, his voice cold and unforgiving. "What he's done is unforgivable. We'll stand by you, Zara. Whatever you need, we'll be there for you and Mila." I felt a rush of relief wash over me, a sense of vindication that I had never known before. I had been so afraid that they would take Ethan's side, that they would blame me for the breakdown of our marriage. But they had seen the truth, and they had chosen to stand with me. I thanked them, my voice shaking with gratitude. And then I left, my heart lighter than it had been in months. When I returned home, I found Mila playing happily in the living room, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded around her. I scooped her up in my arms, holding her close as I breathed in the sweet scent of her hair. "Mommy, where did you go?" she asked, her little face scrunched up in confusion. "I had to take care of some grown-up things, baby," I said, my voice soft and soothing. "But everything is going to be okay now, I promise." Just then the phone rang, shattering the peaceful moment. I answered it with a sense of dread, knowing exactly who it would be. "Zara, what the hell have you done?" Ethan's voice was raw with anger, tinged with a hint of desperation. "My parents just called me, telling me that they're cutting me off, that they're taking your side in all of this. What did you say to them? I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a sense of power that I had never known before. I told them the truth, Ethan. The truth about who you really are. The truth about what you've done. And now they know. Everyone knows. It's over, Ethan. You've lost. The divorce proceedings were a blur of paperwork and legal jargon, but through it all, I held my head high. I had the truth on my side, and the support of those who mattered most. Ethan's parents were true to their word, standing by me and Mila every step of the way. Ethan, on the other hand, was a shell of his former self. He had lost everything, his job, his reputation, his family. Jade had abandoned him as soon as the scandal broke, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions alone. I watched from across the courtroom as he sat slumped in his chair, his face gaunt and haunted. A part of me felt a flicker of pity for him, a remnant of the love I had once felt. But then I remembered all the pain he had caused, all the lies he had told, and my heart hardened once more. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. I was granted full custody of Mila, along with a generous settlement that would ensure our financial stability for years to come. Ethan was left with nothing, his once promising future reduced to ashes. As I walked out of the courthouse, Mila's hand clasped tightly in mine. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was finally over. I was free. The months that followed were a time of healing and growth. I threw myself into my studies, determined to build a better life for myself and my daughter. Mila thrived in her new school, making friends and discovering new passions. I watched her blossom before my eyes, marveling at the resilience and strength that she possessed. She was a fighter, just like her mother. But even as we moved forward, the specter of Ethan lingered in the background. He had taken to drinking heavily, drowning his sorrows in a bottle. His once charming face was now bloated and ruddy, his eyes bloodshot and vacant. One day he showed up at our door reeking of alcohol and desperation. "Please, Zara," he slurred, his words barely intelligible. "I need to see Mila. I need to make things right." I stared at him coldly, my heart a block of ice in my chest. "You lost the right to see Mila the moment you chose Jade over your family, the moment you decided to lie and cheat and steal. You're not the man I married, Ethan. You're not the father Mila deserves." He recoiled as if slapped, his eyes filling with tears. "I know I messed up, Zara. I know I hurt you and Mila, but please, give me another chance. I can change, I swear." I shook my head, my voice firm and unyielding. "It's too late for that, Ethan. You had your chance and you blew it. Mila and I are better off without you. Now I suggest you leave before I call the police." He stared at me for a long moment, his face a mask of anguish and regret. And then he turned and stumbled away. His shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. I had loved him once with all my heart. But that love had been tainted by his lies and betrayal, poisoned by his selfish actions. Now I was free to love myself and my daughter, to build a life that was filled with joy and purpose. I had emerged from the darkness stronger and wiser, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my broken marriage. As I closed the door and turned back to Mila, I felt a sense of hope and possibility fill my heart. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. "Come on, baby," I said, scooping her up in a tight hug. "Let's go have some fun." And together we stepped out into the sunlight, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. We were survivors, Mila and I, and nothing could break us as long as we had each other.